Jeremiah, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to become a Jedi?
Because of all the rules.
Nope, because you can't force it. I hear McKay in the background. Boo! I came up with that one on my own over dinner.
Really?
I just heard McKay. Boo! My own joke, everyone. I was going to do the lukewarm thing, but Jeremiah had already used it. This is the first episode of the new year, isn't it?
Oh, Happy New Year. I didn't see you until last year. It's been a whole year since I've seen you guys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another EU-tastic episode with Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Drew.
And Happy New Year!
Yeah, I haven't seen you guys since last year. It's been a whole year. Huh?
Oh,
Yep.
jeez.
Happy
Sorry.
New Year. So this is our first podcast episode of 2024, and that means
I'm very pressured.
knock, 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 really close to our 4-year anniversary as Empire Radio.
Ooh.
Knocking on that door next month.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
You
Yeah.
fucked me again.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Guns N' Roses? Anybody? Okay.
No,
Anyways.
Every
I don't
press
know
chat,
music.
just let it ride.
But yes, so first podcast episode of 2024. But we are recording this a week ahead of when it's going to be posted. So if you are listening to this right now, that means right now on YouTube, there is a YouTube exclusive movie review of Rebel Moon by me and Drew. And so go something like that. Go check that movie review out.
Go watch it right now.
It's live. It'll be going. We're recording this on the 3rd. It will be going live tomorrow morning, the 4th. And then, but this episode will be posted a week later. So,
Can y'all see the stream?
Yeah, I was gonna say, should I refresh?
Yo, dude, we've got a sick gif of me dancing going
It's
live.
because we're using the AI version of Andrew because he's busy and he.
I'm sorry.
glitched
Wait,
out.
what?
That's what happened.
What does it mean about me right now?
so I know on Discord your lights flicker like on my screen. I
Yeah.
don't know if it has to do with the.
I don't think so because this is
Frame
what happened
rate, and
earlier,
it
and then I
just lines up.
reset it.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yo, it's going. It's still going. It's
I know I'm gonna.
Don't.
Jeremiah will keep talking.
Oh gosh.
anyways.
We'll keep the stream going.
Yeah,
Or no,
yes. So this, I'm just gonna be real with y'all. I'm a bit pressured. I feel the pressure of being the first ever episode of 2024.
Why?
I don't know. It's a lot of responsibility. If this one sucks, I don't want to set the mood for the rest of the year. You know.
I don't
So
know.
I wanted
we
to.
got,
I hope it's
we
good.
got a lot of good content in the next 2 months. So I
Yeah,
think.
you do. Yeah, y'all don't need me anymore. You
No,
don't
we need
No,
you.
you don't.
no.
What do you mean?
Just kidding.
We want you back every single episode if we could.
Fact.
If I could, honestly, if my schedule was such that I could do that, my life would be a lot simpler, and I'd really enjoy that.
Time to
But
retire off of YouTube and just come on.
no,
I
I
was
gotta
just
get.
last week. For the last couple of weeks, it was Powerball time for me. I was buying Powerball tickets, and I
Yep.
was just thinking about how I have a custom built house, and I'll have a studio built, and I'd pay the three of us, or both of you, plus other like people to like do Empire Radio, and we'd go full time,
Jeez, that would be
putting
amazing.
out like 10, 15 videos a week on YouTube, all that jazz. like,
Oh,
all kinds of content.
jeez, dude.
Done.
We would have to have a fleet of editors for that.
Yeah, I'd hire my nephew, Josiah. He's
Oh.
good at video editing and all that stuff. So
Sweet.
we'd hire him. We'd hire probably Stephanie. I'll probably hire Stephanie to be our social media expert. Get us
It's like
doing
a whole
that.
family empire at this point.
Yeah.
Heck
And
yeah.
So, but I did not win the Powerball. So
Oh, who
Well,
won?
and you need a toilet flush sound effect for that, Drew. You just, but yeah, I
This is
was.
like the first time that LA didn't win in like forever.
Yeah,
or California.
it's
always
because we're the
California.
best, you know.
Or
like that.
there's a lot of you guys, and
Well, that
four of
too.
you
Fifth biggest
guys.
economy in the world. Is
We had a bunch of killer whales off the coast, like way farther north recently than they were supposed to be because they were looking for food. And like whale watching was a huge thing for a few weeks. So there's
Did you
that.
see them?
No, some on the news.
You
It was
didn't go
crazy
look?
though because the clips the clips that they put on the news were them yeeting dolphins into the air. And it was like two. So there were like probably 3 or 4 clips in the rotation, right? Because it's the news, right? And there's like one of them on the boat and they're looking and you see it kind of breach, right? And it's nice. And then like there's 2 of them just yeeting them right
I
into
saw
the
that
air.
video. I thought
Yeah.
they were attacking the boat, but
No. No, they
you know,
they
like all
take,
those killer whales. have
dude,
been,
let me
like,
tell you
tackling
something.
boats
Killer
right now.
whales are menaces.
Yes, no,
Freaking menaces.
they're becoming
Don't let Free Willy fool you. He's like, oh, it's beautiful, and he's jumping. No.
What is he like again?
I'm not doing it again. But listen, they're terrifying.
Jeremiah's like, all right, 20 minutes in. here we go."
Anyway, yes, Rebel Moon review on YouTube exclusive. Go check that out. But also, we kind of keep saying this at the end of episodes, which is not the smartest thing because not everyone goes all the way to the end. But
Boo!
But like I said, we had a lot of content planned for next 2 months, so January, February. So, but a lot of it is based on things that need to be effort on your guys' as listeners if you want to be relevant. So we're reading 2 books and we're going over Star Wars Resistance, both seasons. So if you haven't watched Resistance, go watch those, binge watch that over the next 2 months. Also, we are doing the next High Republic book later this month. And so go read that, The Eye of Darkness or whatever.
Sauron.
Yeah.
That I just started reading it last night. It's pretty cool
Did
so
you?
far.
Really?
Yep, I'm like 9 chapters in or something like
I have
that.
it in my backpack like one of these days. But
So just
Yeah.
in your backpack. You
But-
haven't read it yet?
Also for
Yeah.
next month, Valentine's Day special, we're doing Dark
Lost
Disciple.
Stars. What? No.
So also I was looking up Lost Stars on audio. There's no audiobook for that.
I told you that they took it down. I have it. You're gonna have to like borrow my account for this.
Did you tell them for Valentine's Day we're going to do a special where you speed date different Star Wars characters, Jeremiah?
Ooh,
No,
that'd be
because
cool.
we're doing Dark Disciple
With
book
AI?
review.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Well,
That would be actually.
I mean, Dexter is
Dexter Laboratory.
what?
What?
are we talking
No.
about?
Dexter, he's free that night if you wanted to have him on for a speed date.
No, I'm good. So yes,
Gives great hugs.
you're listening and you want to be relevant to what we're doing over the next couple months, go read those books and watch Star Wars Resistance. So then our breakdowns and discussions will make more sense on your guys'
Now,
ends.
Jeremy, is there going to be a couple episodes that aren't going to be live stream?
There are going to be 2 episodes. We're not there'll be just 1 episode. That's
Well,
not going to be
okay,
live streamed this month,
two.
which
Is it
we I haven't revealed yet. It's kind of a secret.
Okay, well, I'm just
But
saying.
we'll be
it's not gonna
doing.
live
We're
stream.
gonna try and do that in the Discord, a live stream in the Discord.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that would be on the 17th. A special episode. I haven't announced it yet, but
Join the
Jeremiah-
Discord if you want to see.
Join the
Jeremiah
Discord.
has been preparing for this for a long time. His twerking skills have improved greatly. You'll enjoy it.
no. But my thumbnail for that episode, I think, is the best thumbnail for YouTube I've ever made. I'm super hyped to
Wow.
reveal it.
So now you're gonna have to show me after this.
I was gonna say we're gonna have to approve.
I put a lot of work into this thing.
So
I don't know how many hours I
you
put in this.
doesn't
stupid
want
little
us to be
thumbnail.
Jeez, dude.
But yes, so join the Discord because it's a lot of fun, and you get
Yeah.
announcements and stuff before
And
everybody
sometimes
else.
live
So
streams when Andrew's in Hawaii or Drew's in Hawaii.
you can live stream from
No,
What?
Hawaii a little bit. Oh,
That'd be cool though.
you
What?
could get on a video call.
Was that where you were when me and Jeremiah did that episode?
That's where I'm going.
He's leaving for Hawaii next week,
yeah.
Oh,
and he's gonna be gone
Wow.
for 2 episode nights. So that's why we're
That's why there's already
jeez.
one.
Rebel Moon is going live
Must be
tomorrow morning,
nice.
and then next week, the 10th or 11th, is when this episode's gonna go.
I'm just
So
going to Alabama.
I will be staying here. So
All right,
Can we swap spots?
dude. Don't tempt me with a time in
Just
Hawaii,
because I want to go hunting.
dude. Yes. I mean, it's going to be a lot of waking up early and sitting.
But yes, EU with Andrew. And we're back with Luke. So last time we did Dark Empire, which is a comic series.
Yep.
But Andrew, what are we doing tonight? 'Cause we're doing a little pivot from that. So what's going on now?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're doing a little pivot, but theoretically, not theoretically. This is the next. This is the next entry, the next main entry into the story of the expanded universe. So we are covering the Jedi Academy trilogy, affectionately known as the Jedi Academy trilogy, which is 3 books. If you're watching the video, I've got them up right here. Interestingly enough, I don't remember where I found the first one, but it's really old. I got it back when I was in college, and I got it used, and I'm pretty sure that this is from 1994 or sometime in the 90s, but it's
As
old.
old as you.
It's old. Like there's like a slight bit of mold on the page on the side.
Does it have that old book smell to it?
Oh yeah. It smells like a
mold.
It's kind of yeah. I mean, it's beat up. You can't see it on camera, but it's really beat up. The other 2 I had to get from Amazon over the weekend.
So you got them over the weekend and read them over the weekend?
I got them Thursday and Friday respectively.
How do you read so fast? I wish I could. That's like
Jeremiah. I
the
need you to
superhuman
know.
ability. I wish.
I need you to know how stressful my life has been since I got
but
these books.
even if I could read half that speed,
You know, you could have just done one book, and we could.
Yeah, I could have, but let me tell you something.
Like,
This is relevant. This is relevant.
You have done that yourself.
So this is relevant. Okay, to that question, to answer your question. But before I say this, I don't know if you know, my bookmark is still like halfway through this one. I finished the other half of this one today at like way too fast to comprehend all the details. I just wanted to make sure I had the main story points down. So I'm going to go back and reread the last half of this book, which is why my bookmark's still there. But to answer your question, to address what you said, Drew, these books really need, I personally feel like they need to be digested as a trilogy. Like you don't have to read them as a trilogy, but if I'm going to explain them to someone, the story just kind of makes more sense together, right, more so than just doing one book at a time. Some books are not like that. Like Thrawn, some of the other books, like we could do them singularly and it would probably be fine. But these, I just felt like they needed to.
So let's just say, is the first book, is it good without reading the other 2, or do you kind of have to?
No. It's good. It's good. It's a good book.
Watch all of it, and hopefully it's better.
Watch all of it.
I'm talking about Rebel Moon.
Oh yeah, no. This is good. And I'll get into this a little bit more when we actually start the presentation. But yeah, it's a trilogy. I've had this first one for a very long time. And I could never find the other 2. I looked and looked and looked, and then the times that I randomly saw one, I didn't see the other, or I didn't have money, or like it just was kind of elusive for a very, very long time. And then I was on the fence. It's been a very stressful, very busy month for me. It felt like we did the last episode, and I kind of blinked, and it was like the end of December already. And there was a part of me that was
to you.
Huh?
That's what December does to you.
Yeah. And so I was like, so for those of you who are interested in a future episode, I've had Tag and Bink in the back of my pocket for a while. And Tag and Bink, huh?
You just take them out.
Get out. Anyways, for those of you who know Tag and Bink, it would be a fun episode. For those of you who don't go look them up, because I want to wait until I do that episode to be the one to tell you about them. But they're fantastic characters. They kind of hold the fabric of Star Wars together in the original trilogy. Just off screen, it's amazing. But I was thinking about that, and I was rereading this book because I finished. So we did Dark Empire, and around that time, I finished. What book did I finish? I've been reading Star Wars books like nonstop since. For a few months now, but I finished a book and then I started this one because I was like, it's been so long since I've opened this. So I reread it and I was like, I really should get the other 2 books. And lo and behold, Amazon came through. And so this one, so you can tell this one's a lot older because the other two have the Legends banner across the top.
Right.
This one does not.
So it has the cannon banner on it.
It doesn't have a canon banner, but yeah, it's pretty wild. So these are very old stories, just shortly published. We'll get into this in a little bit, but very soon published after the Thrawn trilogy. And yeah, so this is the next entry into the story of Luke. So I figured this would be a good place to kind of segue from there. Got the books, read them,
Fun,
and we're gonna get into it.
All right.
So, are we ready?
Yeah, let's see this presentation.
All right. Let me get this thing going in presentation mode. Going to share my screen in just a second. Anybody got any good jokes while I'm doing this?
Do you know why ducks have tail feathers?
Why?
To cover their butt quack.
Get.
He did that one on Grace's interview, and that was the first time I heard that, and it was kind of funny.
That's pretty good. All right, can we see the screen here?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you see it changing?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, we're good to go. All right, the Jedi Academy trilogy. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to dive in, and we're going to go straight into the facts and context. So I like to start every episode with a little bit of, just a little bit of information. Sometimes you don't need it, but sometimes it's nice to have. So general info, Trilogy was written by Kevin J. Anderson, who also wrote a ton, and I mean a ton of other Star Wars books. Like, in the EU alone, we're talking like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, at least 6 or 7 books, and also wrote comics and was very heavily involved in the expanded universe for a very long time. These books, yes.
I'm sure you've said this before. When was the first Star Wars book written? Like EU book?
I actually don't know. I think it was Heir of the Empire.
Really?
I'm like 99% sure. Well, okay, no. So
There's no way.
No, technically not. So after A New Hope, there was a book called Splinter of the Mind's Eye that was supposed to be if A New Hope flopped. This was kind of the continuation, like backup plan. It was in the form of a book. It's the first mention of a Kyber crystal, but it was spelled like Kyber crystal. There was a lot of really. It's a really weird story. It's a really weird story, and I'm really glad we got Empire as a result. So I think that might have been the first one. I can't see the chat, so if the chat's saying anything, great. But I think it was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and then I think the next actual book was Heir of the Empire by Timothy Zahn, which because he's credited as kind of kicking off what we now know as the expanded universe. So,
right.
So I need to. That's a great question. I need to confirm the date on Splinter of the Mind's Eye, but it's a very. We might cover it at some point, but realistically, like it's one of the ones that I watched a video on the plot, and I was like, this is interesting, and I don't know if I would ever want to read it. so we'll see. But anyways, these books were published in the year of 1994, the year of my birth, in February, June, and September, respectively. I could not find dates. The general dates were like the first of each month. But then in the Star Wars Essential Reader's Companion from 2012, which I have, by the way, anyone is looking for a great book to aid them through the expanded universe, this is fantastic. And it is written by the legend Pablo Hidalgo.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was before Disney took over. This was the official, I mean, it's the Essential Reader's Companion, but this is like the official compilation of all of the expanded universe, including some of the short stories. They include some of the short stories as entries and some of the video games. but it's mostly books. But you can literally follow this. They have it broken up into eras. So they have an Old Republic section. They have the Clone Wars. They have
That's
the
cool.
the Imperial Civil War era. They have one or two different eras after Return of the Jedi too. But like literally, if you want a roadmap of like all of the most worthwhile expanded universe stories, this is it, and it summarizes them too, which was very, very helpful in creating this episode, which we'll get into in a second. But in this book, it says March, July, and October of 1994. So there's a little bit of back and forth, but basically it was 1994. They all three were published in the same year.
Redbox said that book was written in 1978.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Because they didn't know if A New Hope was going to take off, and they were like, "Well, here's a sequel just in case in book form," and then it pretty much got scrapped because of Empire. But the other cool thing is that this book has timeline placements. It has the different worlds they visit. It's like a full reader's aid, a companion, if you will. That's what the book's called. So it's really cool. It's a really great resource, and it includes some really cool artist renderings of some of the moments in the books.
Oh, cool.
So, for example, if you go back to remember when Luke fought Clone Luke in the Thrawn trilogy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Like if you happen to look up some of the moments from like search a book and do Google Images, a lot of times the art that you see is actually from this book. They just scanned it and put it up. Anyways, this story takes place in 11 BBY after Thrawn and Dark Empire, which is one of the reasons why I chose this story, because both of the events of both of those, which we've covered on this podcast, Dark Empire being the most recent one, are actually referenced a few different times throughout this book. You don't really have to have read or consumed the other stories, but there's nice nods. There's nice nods to the things that happened, especially when the characters talk about like the state of the galaxy and like how the Empire is infighting. Like the galactic warlords the Empire's still like fighting against one another during this. It's not a main part of the story. It's kind of off to the side, but it's helpful for context. So yeah, 11 BBY after both Thrawn and Dark Empire. There are a few other stories between Return of the Jedi and this, but those are the most important ones. This is a very classic feeling set of books. And what I mean by that is like, this feels very much like the characters all feel like a very natural progression from who they were in the movies. Like very, very, very much so. Like it's been a while since I've read the Thrawn trilogy, but like when I was reading these books, I was like, yo, these are like Kevin Anderson nailed the characters. Like, so I really enjoyed that. But it's a classic feeling Star Wars tale that embodies, in my opinion, the best kind of parts of the EU, along with Thrawn too. But like this is just kind of classic EU storytelling progression for me personally. However, apparently not everyone liked this story. Which is not surprising because Star Wars fans are Star Wars fans, but
even back then it was like,
well, I'm more so talking about more recently, because I found some threads, some different forum threads from various places on the internet when I was researching this book, and like people with Kevin J. Anderson's work, people either love it or they're like, this guy is one of the worst expanded universe authors ever, and I'm like, that's really harsh.
is this guy still alive?
Yes.
Okay. Like, is he still like writing? Like, how old is he?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. The only author I really keep up with is Zahn at this point.
That guy's like 72 or something.
Still the best.
He's goated.
Yeah. Is that a lightsaber, Drew?
It's a push pop.
They still make those?
Oh yeah, dude.
Those were the rage when this book came out.
Yeah, I'm following the theme of the book right now.
Dude, we could have like an apocalypse and people could be trying to rebuild civilization and they'd be able to find those things in gas stations, like decrepit.
I didn't even know they still
Yeah.
made.
Oh, they're going to be around forever. As long as the earth is spinning, push pops will probably be a thing.
This thing expires in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Which
It's kind of wild.
What does that mean?
So
Bullshit.
anyways, so yeah, people are pretty divided about his work. People seem to like the first book the most, and then it just kind of trails off. I will say that there's a lot going on in these books, and whereas The Last Jedi, there wasn't a lot going on. This is kind of the opposite of like, maybe, admittedly, there could have been too much going on, but I don't think that the complaints that other people made, I don't agree with most of them. Like one of them is like he does a really good job of setting stuff up and he doesn't follow through. Some of the things I do agree. I feel like they should have been expanded on. But anyways, it's for me personally, it's a good read. It's a very enjoyable read.
Fun.
If you are going to enjoy Star Wars media in the expanded universe, I would say definitely read these because, and this is the most important thing about these books, is they set up a lot foundationally for the rest of the expanded, like a lot of stuff is introduced in, a lot of characters specifically are introduced in these books that will still be characters in like the new Jedi Order books with the Yuzan Vong, like that are like 20 and 30 years canon wise in the future, you know, when the kids are grown up and stuff like that. Like there are still characters in those that reoccur from these books. Just as there were still characters, there were a very small handful of characters from the Thrawn trilogy that are in these books. But these, Mara Jade's in it briefly. But these are very important in like setting up the trajectory of Luke for the rest of the expanded universe. So, which we'll get into. Also, I, Jedi, there's a novel called I, Jedi, which is, people always say, read this trilogy and read that, because it is basically the same events of this trilogy from a perspective of a character called Corran Horn, who becomes a pretty prominent reoccurring character as a Jedi later in the expanded universe. They said that they wrote I, Jedi to kind of fix some continuity things that were happening too. But anyways, there are some messy parts about this book. There's some facts and some things that are referenced that aren't completely accurate with what actually happened in the other stories. But basically, the important stuff matters. That matters. They nailed. So, yeah. But like I said, this is the next thing after Dark Empire. Luke falls to the dark side, comes back, does the whole thing, gets the holocron, which actually plays a pretty big role in these books, and then goes from there. So let's talk about the bad guys. These are all excluding your normal characters that you would expect. Okay, so like Luke's not going to be in this list. We know Luke, we know Lando, we know Han, all those people. Bad guys wise, what?
That guy's eyebrow is on the bottom.
Dude, I cannot stand this guy.
Really?
I wanted to punch him in his stupid face so many times in these novels because he's an a-hole, and we'll get into that. But so Exar Kun,
or a guy that kind of looks like Starkiller.
Exar Kun, yeah. So Exar Kun, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. There's a lot of lore for him, a lot of lore. In fact, this might have been his first reference as an expanded universe character in the expanding universe in the 90s. Kevin J. Anderson, and someone else from Dark Horse actually did a comic series expanding on his backstory and set up some of his original lore. But there was a lot of lore on him. And as an old Sith Lord. So I'm not going to get into it now. I just don't have time. But I would suggest checking him out and reading into his character because it's very interesting. Natasi Dala.
Go Dala.
Dala. She's an Imperial Admiral, even though her rank insignia on the book cover that I pulled this from is actually that of a Grand Moff. That was a mistake that they made. She's an Imperial Admiral. We have Morth Duel, who's he's something else. We'll get into talking about him.
Does he have he kind of looks like the one guy from Harry Potter with that eye thing?
Oh, yeah.
Mad Eye Moody.
I remember names.
It's Mad Eye Moody. We McKay and I just finished 100%ing both Lego Harry Potter games over the holidays, so it's still fresh.
So that's why you didn't have time.
That is not the reason.
I wonder why your December flew by.
No, Morth Duel. He's an old accomplice of Han. We'll get into him, but he is a species called Ribbit, or if you want to say it another way, Ribbit.
He looks kind of like a
He's a sleazebag, and then we have Ambassador Fergan, who is the ambassador for Caridia. Caridia. Anyways, it's like one of the last super loyal to the Empire planets. It's where they had one of their main military academies, and he is a terrible person. Terrible person. So, anyways, let's move on to the new good guys. All right, so it's kind of difficult to find pictures of these people. There are no pictures of Gantoris, so this is kind of a representation of what Gantoris looks like. Kind of darker olive skin, long black hair, huh?
This is a picture of a guy.
Yeah. Well, when I search for Gantoris, this picture comes up. Weird. Ironically.
So but did the website that it came from?
It's like a fan thing. It's not this is not an official picture of him.
Not some random person that actually just has that name coincidentally, and it's
maybe. But this guy looks like they describe him in the book, except his hair's out. He normally has it in a really long black ponytail, like a braid thing, but very strong face, olive, darker skin features. He doesn't have eyebrows in the book. Luckily, this person does have eyebrows because it would be kind of weird to see that. But anyways, we'll get into him. Streen, who's an older gentleman. Both of these people, by the way, are new Jedi recruits. Kip Duran, who is a very, very prominent reoccurring character from here on out. I mean, very, very prominent character. Qui Zux, who is what?
I just sounded like you said Qui sucks. That's why I thought you said for a second.
Well, Qui Zux, who is an Imperial scientist. Kilgal, who is a Mon Calamari Jedi healer, who was discovered during this book, and then Jaina and Jason Solo, who have been characters. They were characters in the Thrawn novels because Leia was having them and was pregnant. But this is one of the first times that they have speaking roles and they do stuff. As you can see here, Jason is wielding a lightsaber. And that is a scene that happens in the third book. And it is wild. It is absolutely wild, even for Star Wars standards. So anyways, Jaina and Jason Solo are characters here. And Anakin Solo, who is Han and Leia's third child, is in this book. But he is but an infant, does not have any speaking roles, and is more so a piece that the Empire tries to take in the third book. He's more of like a thing rather than a person in this. But yeah, so those are the characters. This is the most important character, though. This is Grand Admiral Cheeto. Okay. Yeah. I just put this in here because Jeremiah mentioned Cheeto, putting a picture of Cheeto in there. So I just wanted to put a picture of him in there. So I took that of him a few weeks ago. It's not relevant to the story, but it's there. And if you want to see my cat, who is really cute, and you're listening to the audio version, go check out the YouTube version.
Doesn't he have his own Instagram?
I don't know if it's still up. It hasn't been updated in many years, and so none of the pictures are current. No.
Also,
we gave up on
our YouTube and subscribe and give a thumbs up.
But this is a very recent picture of him. This is from 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay. So, any questions so far?
No.
All right. Without further ado, let's get into part 1, aka book 1, Jedi Search. So this, it's worth saying that I said this before, but there is really a lot going on. Jeremiah, I know that when we do episodes where there are many storylines kind of happening at simultaneously, I know it's difficult for you to do those. This is like that on steroids because it's 3 books. In typical Star Wars fashion, there are at least 1 or 2 plots, sometimes 3, that are happening all simultaneously. And the style of this book is oftentimes you'll get a chapter that centers around certain people. So the way he writes is like Han and Chewie will be doing a thing. You'll focus on them for a chapter, maybe 2. Normally it's a chapter, and then it ends on a cliffhanger, and then we jump to Leia or we jump to Luke.
I hate those books.
Well, it's good. To me, it wasn't. It didn't take me out of it. I enjoyed it personally, but that's kind of the way these stories are written, and it makes it really difficult to tell in a story from start to finish.
Yeah.
So I pulled some summaries together of these books to help me kind of get through everything. But because we're dealing with 3 books, and because I don't want this to be another 4-hour episode, we're going to go very high level stuff. I'm going to preface that with, we're going to talk about the events. We're going to talk about some of the things that happen, but this is not going to be nearly as detailed as Death Troopers because it's impossible. It's just, there's so much.
You could spend 4 hours on every book.
You really could. So I would suggest, like, you're going to get the full plot from start to finish in this episode of the podcast. But if you're interested in the story, there will inevitably be so much that I will not be able to cover. So please take the time. If you're interested, go read those. You can get them at Amazon or whatever. They're super cheap. It's like $8 a pop or something now. As with many of the small, like, Expanding Universe paperbacks now. So anyways, lots of stuff to cover. We're going to start with the first book, Jedi Search. So this book opens with Han and Chewbacca going to Kessel, right? So Han is acting in an official capacity for the New Republic, which he makes note of. It's kind of funny. He's like, I'm going back to Kessel now, but I'm doing it like I have the full, I don't have to hide. I don't have to like hide in the mall. I don't have to, because remember, it's worth noting, Kessel is right by the mall, which is this cluster of black holes, which is actually where they imprison Abeloth at one point in the Expanding Universe. But in this case, it's that cluster of black holes that you see it in Solo, the movie.
Yeah.
So he's going back to Kessel, and he's like, "Oh, I can do this now in an official style, in an official capacity. Like I don't have to hide myself. I don't have to like, sneak my way in. It's like I have the backing of the New Republic." And I just thought that was funny. So the whole point of them going there on this diplomatic mission is to establish contact with the moon of Kessel as a spice operation, to essentially start a relationship between them and the New Republic, because they have not been. They sent Mara Jade and Talon Card. I don't know if you remember them from the Thrawn trilogy, but they created a smugglers alliance. They're characters, very important characters from the Thrawn trilogy, very like front and center characters for those books. But anyways, obviously
Mara Jade.
Yeah. But they tried to reach out. They were flatly rebuked and refused. And so they sent Han and Chewie in to be like, hey, let's see if we can send someone in to establish official contact on behalf of the government to see if we can work something out. Because in these books, spice is not just a drug. It's like, it has many uses and is viewed as a resource more so than just like space heroin, essentially. So they show up, and Han tries to make contact, and before he knows it, he is being shot out of the sky. So Morth Duel, who we talked about earlier, is the current overseer of the facility. And he sees that, before even seeing it's Han Solo, sees that it comes back, it pings as a New Republic ship, and he becomes afraid. And Kessel has a moon that orbits it. They call it the Garrison Moon, and it's where they launch their ships from. All of a sudden, he's got a whole freaking fleet of ships that he's cobbled together from different places: X-wings, TIE fighters, old Imperial shuttles. It's kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, and they shoot down the Falcon. And they put up a really good fight, but essentially they overwhelm the Falcon. They crash, and it is a really, really tough crash. Like Han is like he's like pretty badly hurt in this.
Did
So
he
Han wakes
crash on to the moon or onto Kessel?
Kessel. Thank you
Okay.
for the clarifying question. They crash on a Kessel, which, by the way, they do a pretty good job of explaining how Kessel works. So Kessel is an asteroid essentially, and they have factories on the surface of Kessel that pump atmosphere into the air so people can breathe for the spice production. Because there's no atmosphere around an asteroid, so they make it artificially, and it supports the workers and the workers. It's the prisoners, really.
The union workers,
Yeah, the quote union workers. So anyways, it talks about that, which is really cool. But Han, he wakes up and he's in Morth Duel's office, and basically Morth Duel sends them to the spice mines to work. Him and Chewie. So the reason why this happens is kind of twofold. One, we find out that Morth won the prison complex through fighting when the Empire fell apart. He and his faction of prisoners was the ones that were the ones that kind of rose up and took everybody else out, and they gained control of the prison facility. And he's very, very paranoid that he is going to lose his power. He's very, very he's about as slimeless and like slimy and spineless as you can get. Like, so he really relies on the power of other people. He's not extremely smart, and he's very paranoid. So when he sees the New Republic coming in, he's like, nope, we're not doing that. They're trying to come take everything away from me now. We're going to shoot him down. So that's one of the reasons why he sends Han and Chewie down, because he's like, now I've made a mistake, because he thought Han was playing them, like he wasn't actually from the New Republic. And then he uses a little bit of spice, which allows you to like temporarily see into other people's minds. It gives you like telekinetic abilities. He goes through and he's like, oh crap, he's telling the truth. And now we have an ambassador from the New Republic that we shot down. Now we can't let him leave because they're really going to come after us. Right. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that, come to find out, you know how in A New Hope, Han's like, I'm so sorry, Jabba, I had to dump my spice because I was being boarded by Imperials. The Imperials found me. Do you remember that whole thing? The reason why he's the reason why he's in debt to Jabba.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So come to find out, Morth Duel was the one who tipped the Imperials off that Han had spice on the Millennium Falcon. And so because what Morth would do was he ran like secret spice operations underneath the noses of the Imperials while they were occupying Kessel. And after someone like ran their use to him, he would sell them off to tie up the loose ends. So he did that for Solo, for Han. Han dumps the spice and is in debt to Jabba. Well, Jabba finds out and comes and takes Morth's eyes, which is why he has like a lens on one of them. His other one's completely blind, and the other one has a lens to like magnify it and help him see. So it's kind of a twofold. Like, he really hates Han, but he also doesn't want to get found out. So he sends him down into the mines. They go down into the mine shafts. They start working, and come to find out, spice is reactive to light. And so it has to be mined in total darkness. So the way that they do this is the prison guards that are there, or the guards, the enforcers that are there, they have infrared, like night vision, thermal goggles. The prisoners have nothing. So they take them down in complete darkness. And what they do is the guards will set a charge on a wall, and it's like a seismic type of charge that doesn't give off any light, and it breaks the spice off the wall. And then they have to go in with their hands. They have pouches on their belts, and they have to go in and pick the spice out with their hands. You have to do it by feel, because any sort of a light will start a chain reaction in the spice that will like basically set it off, and it won't be pure anymore. Well, they find out that there are actually creatures down there that have been picking off the prisoners one by one. They're not coming back. Whole entire parties have been gone, and they don't know what's going on. So they're down there. In the process of going down there, they meet a young Kip Duran. He's one of the prisoners there. And very quickly, you realize that he can do really cool things. Like, there's one point where he's quite persuasive, if you will, with one of the guards in letting him do something, which is basically a Jedi mind trick.
Right.
But they don't come out and say it. Like, you see him, the way that he wrote it was really clever. It was like, because Han can't see anything. It's in pitch black, and they're riding in a mine cart down the shaft. And he's like, he hears this young voice, and the guard like tries to get him to sit down, and then you hear the kid say something, and then the guard repeats it, and they don't bring any attention to it, but you're like, wait a second, like that was a Jedi mind trick, you know? So anyways, he meets Kip because Kip is very interested in the outside world and interested in what's going on, because Kip has grown up in the mines. So he and his parents were brought there because they spoke out against the destruction of Alderaan and A New Hope. And he has been there most of his life. His parents died shortly after they arrived, and he's in his mid to late teens at this point, and has been there for like almost a decade. Like he's just lived there and worked in the mine. So he's like, oh, we got new people. Like they know what's going on. They're from the New Republic. Like, so he tries to get close to Han, and they strike up a friendship pretty quickly. So one of the times that they go down, their mining party gets attacked by one of these creatures, and you can't see him with the thermal infrared goggles. Of course, none of the prisoners can see anything because it's dark. All of a sudden, people just start getting picked off. You hear screams and stuff. Well, in the process of this attack, Han gets a set of the goggles that he can wear, and to try to help him, Kip and Chewie, get away. And in the process, he looks up and he sees one of the guys go up and like being raised in the air. And then he sees this thing that is basically sucking the energy and the life out of the guard. And as the transfer of energy goes from the guard to this thing, basically he sees these arachnid. They're like crystalline spiders that are made of pure spice. They don't give off any heat signatures at all. And they like have tons of eyes, tons of legs. They're covered in spikes. They make like really gritty sounds when they walk around. They've got really fast feet. It's like just the worst thing from your nightmares. And they prey on people, and they feed on their life force and their energy, and they drain it from you. So he sees one of these, and they're like, not staying here. So they get back into one of the carts. It's automated, and they start flying back up to the staging area and their quarters. Well, they get to the quarters, and they're like, yo, this is crazy. And they start walking out. They start trying to tell people what's going on. Well, come to find out, Morph Duel has sent someone down to kill Han, because Han's been gone for a while at this point. All right. So while Han's been gone, Leia's been by herself, and things are really, really tough on Leia, because she is in the thick of being one of the ministers of state under Mon Mothma, who is now the figurehead of the New Republic. Things are getting very, very busy during this time. Jason and Jaina come back to Leia to stay. So I don't know if you remember, but for the first few years of their lives, they have the kids hidden. I don't know if you remember that from the Thrawn books, but they had that happening a little bit during that book, where because younger children are so susceptible to the dark side of the Force and being molded into evil, Luke has them hidden away until they're 2. And Winter, who I don't know if you remember Winter from the Thrawn books, but Winter is Leia's assistant and right-hand girl, and Winter takes care of them in this hidden location that only Luke, Admiral Akbar, and Winter know the location of. This is very secret. Leia doesn't even know where they are. So, but the kids are old enough, and they're coming back. Well, they come back. Han's not there. And she's like, he said he was going to be back. Like, why is he taking so long? Because the trip was only supposed to be like 3 or 4 days. All of a sudden, he's not there. The kids are back. She's having trouble being a mother and balancing like these new kids who don't really know who she is. Like, they've had visits together in third-party places, but like they're getting used to her. She's getting used to having him around and doing her job. And Han's not there. Well, she decides to contact Kessel because she's like, I need to figure out what's going on with my husband. So she contacts Kessel and gets in contact with Morph Duel. And in the middle of their conversation, she starts asking, she's like, hey, like, we sent an ambassador, what's going on? And his answers come across as very like defensive and almost pre-rehearsed. Like he had been planning for this conversation. Of course, she thinks that's super weird, and she's like, we need to send someone to go check this out. So she kind of going back to Han and Chewie for a second, the reason why Morph Duel decides to try to kill them is because he's like, okay, the New Republic is onto us, and we need to erase all traces of the fact that he was ever here. So we've got to like erase the Falcon signature. He pulls the Falcon into his own fleet and does some modifications to it. He then decides to kill them. Well, they get back from being attacked as the guards are coming in to kill them, and they're like, well, we can't stay here. So they get back into the mining carts, and they're like, well, we're gonna test our chances and see if we can escape. You know, Kip's got these really cool abilities. Maybe he can like help us find our way through the tunnels and get out. Well, long story short, they're chased into the tunnels. They find themselves in the lair of the spiders, and every single one of the men that Morph Duel sends in are killed, picked off one by these spiders. Han, Chewie, and Kip managed to escape. They managed to find their way through some tunnels together to the surface of the planet. From there, they actually are able to steal a very, very, very old Imperial shuttle, and they're home free. Or so you think. Because the entire garrison moon activates, because Morph Duel's like, we can't let them get away because the New Republic's going to come down on us. So he scrambles all of his ships, and they're trying so hard, like with the resources they have to like fight these people off, but they're not doing well at all. And so it gets to the point where the shuttle is like just about to be taken out for good. And Kip's like, the only thing we have to do now, we're going to go into the mall. And Han's like, dude, we're not flying into the freaking mall. Like that's a suicide mission. And Kip's like, trust me, I can do it. I can get us through. And Han trusts him. And lo and behold, Kip uses the Force, and with a ton of concentration, gets them through the mall into the other side, into this centralized area. It's kind of like the eye of a storm, if you will.
Right.
And guess what they find?
Luke's Jedi Academy.
Drew, what were you saying?
Well, you said they flew into the mall. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Starbucks are at malls.
Boo. I thought you said Star Destroyers, and I was going to say you were right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one.
There were four fully functional, perfect condition Star Destroyers guarding a research installation in the middle of the cluster.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, in thinking that the Empire has kind of killed itself because of the infighting, they literally get out of this dogfight and go straight from the frying pan into the fire, and they're all of a sudden faced with 4 Star Destroyers. And Han's like, yo, we have to turn around, and Kip's like, I can't do that again right now. So we got to figure something else out. They're in a really old Imperial shuttle, and they tried this bogus thing of like trying to get past, like talk their way past the Star Destroyers, but they asked for a code, and obviously that doesn't go very well, and so they get taken capture. Keep in mind, we get a little bit of Luke at this point, but it's mostly Han and Chewie. We get a little bit of Leia, we get a little bit of Luke, and I'll go over Luke's stuff in a little bit, but mostly it's Han and Chewie at this point. It's kind of the central plot line that's going on for the first little bit of the book, and they get captured. Classic. So this is when Admiral Dala comes into play. So she is the admiral over this fleet of 4 Star Destroyers, and is the security overseer of what is called the Maul installation. What this is a secret laboratory commissioned by Tarkin himself, and the whole point is to create weapons. And that's the reason, like super weapons. Like, I'm not talking about like, pew, pew, we got a new gun. It's like, no, this is where the Death Star was created. Like, these are super weapons for the Empire, and that's why it's in the middle of the mall, because they want to keep this like very heavily guarded. This is it's like a Tarkin project. Come to find out, like, the Empire hates women almost as much as it hates aliens, and the only reason she's an admiral is because Tarkin appointed her as one. She apparently had a terrible time in the military academy, but he made her an admiral. Come to find out, they were lovers.
Yeah, I was guessing that's
and they hint at a few things in the book, and I'm like, he was really old. he was really old. Like he was old in A New Hope. And this is about a decade after A New Hope, give or take, or at least a decade after Return of the Jedi. So it's like he was old then, and she was. There's just a big age difference.
Wait. Tarkin?
Yeah.
Wait, he's still alive?
No, this is in the past. They were lovers in the past. That's how she got. That's one of the reasons why she got her position as an admiral.
But didn't you say A New Hope and then 10? It's 10
No.
years.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, in this, she's like in her like 40s, give or take, as it in this story. So let's go back.
So then 10 years earlier.
She's probably in her late 20s, early, like probably, early mid 30s. And at the time of A New Hope, all I'm saying is there's a massive age difference between the two. That's all I'm trying to say. It's just weird.
True love,
I guess so. So, anyways, they were lovers, and she got to be an admiral. It wasn't specifically because of that, but they ended up becoming close in the process, and then he died. Anyways, so they get captured. Well, they have been there in orbit around this installation for a decade, a little bit over a decade, with no contact to the outside world. So guess who doesn't know that the Empire has been destroyed?
All of them.
All of them. Oh, that's right. They think that the Empire is just thriving and doing its own thing. Everything's great. Well, when they begin to interrogate Han, he's like, actually, no. And he's like, he taunts him. He's like, yeah, I was actually at both Death Stars. Well, I was at the first one, and he was like kind of by the second one when it blew up. But like, he's like, yeah, I helped kind of do all this stuff. And she's just mad. She doesn't believe him. And they put Han through just this insane torture regimen to get the truth out of him. And at the end of the end of the day, he's telling the truth. And she is frantic at this point, because she's like, Tarkin's dead, Death Star's gone, Emperor's dead, the other Emperor that got resurrected is dead, the second resurrected Emperor is dead. Like all this is going bad. The Empire's in shambles. These quote rebels are now in control of the galaxy, and she's not happy about it. So in the process of Han's interrogation, they of course film and make very detailed records of everything. Well, Han gets pulled out of his cell and pulled into the one of the laboratories in the installation, and he meets Zux, Qui Zux, who is this scientist, and she's very eccentric, very, very heavily dedicated to her work. Like, she's like, the only thing that I strive for is solving complex problems. I don't care what the aftermath is. I just want to solve problems that no one else can. Like, that's her whole thing in this book. So she pulls him in, and he's like, yo, why are you talking to me? Why do you want to talk to me? Like, I don't want to talk to you. And she's like, you said you were on the first Death Star. I want you to tell me everything about it you remember. What did it sound like? What did it smell like? What did it feel like? What did you experience? And he's like, dude, why do you freaking care? I'm not going to tell you anything. She's like, oh, because I helped design it. And I never got to see the finished product. And I wanted to see if it worked. And he was like, yeah, freaking, he's horrified at this point. He's like, yeah, freaking, of course it worked. And he was like, it blew up Alderaan. And she was like, no, that's not true. So they told her that the Death Star was a mining device to be used to break apart asteroids and mine asteroids. And they told her the World Devastators, which she helped design from the Dark Empire series, the things that sucked up stuff.
Yeah.
She was told that they were spun as these like humanitarian things. Like, we're going to go pick up useless stuff and make new things out of them. And Han's like, dude, no, like, you've been played, essentially. So he starts.
I was just thinking, like, from the Thrawn trilogy, the canon one, how like the Death Star was super like under wraps, like nobody knew about it except for like Krennic, and everything like was like under secret. So I was like, how does she know about like the Death Star?
She helped design it,
but she also didn't know what it was also. So
yeah. So during this conversation, Han really starts sowing seeds of doubt into her and starts really trying to make her, because she's like, it's not my responsibility. Whatever they do with my designs is not my responsibility. He's like, no, actually it is. And you need to start taking responsibility for these things. And it shows very early on like how naive she is with this whole thing. So anyways, they have this conversation, and this thing outside of the window orbits by, and she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have a working prototype of the Death Star here." And you're like, "The frick?" And it's like wireframe, so it's just the superstructure and the main reactor, a small control area, and the laser. So it's essentially like a bare bones like wireframe of the Death Star, but it's a slightly smaller functional prototype. It's just in orbit around them. They never got to test it there, but it's there and it works. And then you find out, she's like, oh yeah, and for the last 10 years, we've been working on this new weapon anyways, that's like way deadlier than the Death Star. And she's like, do you want to hear about it? And Han's like, yeah. So it's called the Sun Crusher. I'm gonna go ahead and flip over. It's not the most elegant, good-looking of designs, I will say. It looks kind of stupid in terms of the way it looks, but this thing fires a torpedo, an energy torpedo from that bottom dish. It's called a resonance torpedo. And what it does is it burrows into the core of a star and makes it unstable and makes it go supernova.
Oh, that's cool.
So think about if someone just flew into our solar system. It's like a 2 or 3 person fighter, right? It's very small, very nimble, very
so
hard.
This is like a starfighter type size thing.
Yes, it's like this area. I don't know if you probably can't see my mouse up here.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, you can? Okay, so this area is like you could probably fit 4 or 5 people tops up here. It's very small. So the whole thing is, this is designed to slip into a system, fire one of these torpedoes into the star, get out without anybody knowing. And it's not instantaneous. So the torpedo still has to burrow into the star. So it can take a number of hours, depending on how big the star is. But it's the equivalent of someone coming in, shooting one into our sun, and then the sun going supernova. You can imagine how devastating that would be. I mean, like, we'd be incinerated within minutes completely. There's nothing left. And so Han's like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. We can't let this get out, because this is way worse than the Death Star. Also, to put icing on the cake, they have it's like crystallized. I forget what the specific word is, but it's like quantum crystal armor or something like that. Basically, it's indestructible. It's like quite literally indestructible. Lightsabers, nothing. Lasers, nothing. It could realistically take the full brunt of the Death Star, and it would not disintegrate. Like, it's that strong.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like, she was like, it's explained in the book, but they were like, the armor for this is literally indestructible. Like, you can't destroy it by normal means. So that's the Sun Crusher. I figured it would be good to get a visual reference of what's happening with this. So I'm going to go back now, back to the original thing. But so Han is obviously devastated. And while this is all happening, Han goes back to his cell, and Kui is really begins to like question her life's work at this point. She's having kind of a crisis of her profession and everything she's been doing. And she's like, maybe this is not a good thing that I'm doing here. Maybe I need to think of a way to destroy the Sun Crusher. And she's like, okay, I'll do that. Like, I'm gonna try to take responsibility for my actions. But it's kind of this like, I have time. It's not fully operational yet. It's still like it's ready, but they're working on something with the armor. So it's not like they're gonna take it out anytime soon, right? Well, just so happens that Admiral Dala is leaving. She finds out what happened to the Empire because of Han, and she's like, well, we got to get out there. We have the biggest fleet in the known Empire now, the strongest fleet.
How many, do you say 4?
4.
Okay.
Yep, 4 full Star Destroyers. We're talking probably 100,000, 200,000 ties. I mean, this is like a full. You could destroy an entire world with this fleet.
Right.
It doesn't take much.
I'm wondering just like if the New Republic has like a complete record of all Imperial ships, and then like as they're decommissioning, like knows like, okay, this is ones that are missing still out there. Like
Possibly, but I will say that this facility was completely top secret. Like the only people who knew were Tarkin and the Emperor, and I think Vader, and a very small handful of people. Like the designer of the Death Star that left, so they let him go by himself. She didn't get to go, and when he oversaw the building of the Death Star, like I think they killed him after. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I remember something about that in the book. Is like there's no loose ends with this project. So she's like, well, we got to get out there. We got to get in the game. We can't let the New Republic continue to thrive. So she's like, she calls Kui in. She's like, look, whatever you need, I'll give it to you. Have this ready for tomorrow. And Kui's like, oh no. Well, guess I have to make a decision about what to do about this now and not later. And so she decides to go into action. And she goes and decides to free Han using this like kind of phony, half-forged authorization from the Admiral, because the Admiral's like, basically, I'll give you whatever you need, and kind of gave her like a blank kind of an authorization, and she kind of twists it to her will. It is worth saying that, by the way, she hacks into the system, Kui, and watches Han's full interrogation, which she didn't know was an interrogation. She thought it was an interview. It's a very big factor in her being like, oh, these people are terrible. So anyway, she goes and frees Han. And then she come to find out Kip, because he doesn't have any useful information because he's lived in the mines his whole life, is scheduled to be executed. They're just going to get rid of him. So she's like, well, we got to go get Kip. So they go get Kip. And then they go get Chewie, who is being forced into labor with a bunch of other Wookiees. Very broken, just Wookiees. Like they don't have any fight in them. Their fur's like shaggy and molted. They have scars all over them. Like they've been treated extremely bad. So Chewie's there. They go get him out, and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna break out." And Han's like, "Sick, that's awesome." And she's like, "Yeah." So here we go. And they walk into this hangar, and the Sun Crusher's there. And he's like, "I'm sorry, we're taking the Sun Crusher." She's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna let the Admiral have it." So they break out in the Sun Crusher, and the Admiral's like, oh no, we can't have this happen. She's like, we got to do everything we can to try to get this back. So she sends out a bunch of ties, and of course, like the ties like have no effect on this thing. It's just the lasers are just bouncing off, and it has like some like kind of mid laser cannons on it, so it's enough to like take out a few ties. And there's a brief battle, and then one of the Star Destroyers tries to cut him off, and Han is like, I have an idea, and they fly the Sun Crusher through the command deck of the Star Destroyer because it's indestructible, right? So they literally, like the whole top hammerhead section of that Star Destroyer, I mean, just straight through it, just cuts right through it. And of course, it starts this chain reaction. The Star Destroyer starts going down, and we're talking like 10, 15,000 people on board. Well, it gets sucked in to one of the black holes of the Maul.
Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's been sitting there for a little over a decade, waiting to prove herself. First battle, loses an entire Star Destroyer, and she does not take this well. So anyways, they end up going back out, and Kip's like, Kui, Kip, Han, and Chewie are in this. They're leaving, and Kip is like, all right, I'm gonna go through. We're gonna go through the mall, and we're gonna go out. So then I want to pause here, because this is the point where this story and the other kind of main story kind of intersect. So we're going to go back, and we're going to start with Luke now. All right, you ready?
Oh,
Any
this
questions?
is a subplot?
Was Luke kind of takes a subplot in this book.
Oh, okay.
But any questions about what's happening so far?
So after they crashed into that ship,
Yep.
like they then escaped, or are they still?
Yeah. No, they basically caused that destruction, and they're like, that's a good distraction. And then they left. They went out through the mall again. With
part of me was like, why didn't they just quick do the other three?
You would think.
And
But
then
I think they were more so worried about getting out. It's also worth noting that like there's a moment in this when Kip's in his cell where he's just like seething in anger because he's like, the Empire took me and my family away. They took his brother. You find out they took his brother into stormtrooper service at like 14 against his will. It took him away. He never saw him again. He had an older brother. He never saw him.
dang.
And they took his parents. They put him in the mine. His parents die while he's down there. You find out that I always forget this person's name. Vima Dabota, the Jedi that Leia comes in contact with in Dark Empire. You remember? The one that gives her the lightsaber?
Yes, like she's like super old and like
Yes,
something,
extremely
yeah.
old. Yeah. So she actually ends up in Kessel and teaches him how to use the Force a little bit, which is how he can do some of the stuff he can do.
Oh, okay.
But like basically he's grown up in the mines and he's just mad and he's like, I finally got away from the mines and the Empire's ahead of me again and now I'm stuck. And he finds out he's going to be executed and he's like, they're going to throw my life away like it's nothing. And he's just like really angry. And he comes to this point where he's like, I'm never going to be this weak again. I'm going to learn how to control these powers, and I'm never going to be this weak again. So he's got the makings of a hero or a villain.
Probably
You never
a
know.
villain.
You never know. Anyways, so they get out. So anyways, while this is all going on, at the very beginning of the book, it kind of one of the other things that it opens with is Luke is addressing the New Republic Council, and he's like, "Look, things have been hitting the fan for the past few years. We've had Thrawn, we've had the Emperor. We need another group of Jedi Knights. Like the Jedi Knights protected the galaxy for thousands of years, and they were kind of the backbone of the Old Republic. We need to do that again. So I'm asking for your help. In basically, I need you to sanction me to go build a new Jedi Order and start from scratch." And there, of course, Mon Mothma was like, "Yeah, sure, like whatever you need." So he's like, "I need two things to start. I need a planet. I need you to allow me to find a planet and use it for my academy." And which he then tasks Leia to help with in the time being, like finding a suitable place. And then he's like, the other thing I need is I'm gonna have to find people. I need to go out and search, which is why the book is called Jedi Search. And he's like, I need to. Nice.
Oh, sorry.
That
was
was so quiet.
Yeah. But he was like, I need to go search. So I need you to give me access to the old Imperial archives. And I'm going to have some droids 24/7 kind of combing through data to see if they can pick out things like weird instances of luck and like people doing things they can't explain, like basically traces of like Force users. So they're like, done and done, go do it. So a little bit after that, Luke has a training session with Leia because he's trying to keep up her Jedi training. And in the process of like he's like, we're gonna work on you defending me or defending yourself from like mine probes. So he like puts his hands on her head and he's going through a mine. And in the process of that exercise, he touches this place and they describe it as kind of like at the base of the brain in her mind. And all of a sudden she force pushes him back subconsciously. And he's like physically, like he hits that spot in her mind and he's like blown back. And he's like, dude, what did you do? And she's like, I don't know. What did you do? And he's like, I didn't do anything. It's like, we didn't hit it. You know, that sort of a thing. Phantom Menace, anybody? Nope. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways. And so he realizes that, or he theorizes at this point that Force users, when you touch that part of their mind, they have this subconscious reaction, kind of like when the doctor like taps your knee with that thing. But this is only something Force users have. And he's like, well, now this is really helpful because if my theory is correct, I now have something to aid me in my search for the Jedi.
Oh, so you just go up to random people and
yeah, hey, just let me just put my hands on your head.
He's
real
like,
quick.
I don't need to start a Jedi camp. I need to open up a chiropractic thing and like,
Yeah.
let me just adjust.
Yeah,
your
and the
head a
ones
little
that
bit.
blow me across the room, they never return. So he's like, oh, that's cool. In the meantime, Wedge is leading some of the construction and relief efforts in the aftermath of the battles on Coruscant from Dark Empire. They're like clearing out debris and stuff, and they stumble upon this old torture storeroom from the Emperor that's like heavily guarded. They go down and they find this equipment and stuff, and they're like, we got to get Luke in here. So they bring in Luke. Kind of find out they have these paddles, these two clear paddles, like scanner paddles things, and there's like a central battery unit that goes with him. And apparently, if you scan it, you give it a few seconds and it does a full scan of someone. And if they're force sensitive, this wireframe image of you shows up and it has a little blue aura around it. And if you're not force sensitive, it doesn't. And Luke's like, wow, this could be really helpful in my search for the Jedi.
I was like, the blood sample thing really worked really easy.
Yeah. Well, they don't have that. They don't have the little blood sample Gmail thing.
The Gillette shaver.
Yeah. No, this is far past. Gillette's not a thing anymore. But Luke's like sick. So he goes back and now he's got two things he can do. And he's like, all right, well, R2-D2 and C-3PO are also down there supervising the slicer droids. And he goes down there and he's like, I've got a few leads that I'm going to follow. Let me know if you find anything else. So he begins his search. So the first place he goes to this place called Il Shah. Aol Shah, E-O-L Shah. Ol Shah. El Shah. Aol Shah. Anyways.
How many more pronunciations do you have?
You know, I could have kept going, but he goes to this place. It is a highly volcanic, it's just a terrible place to live. It's not Mustafar, but it's like Mustafar turned down just a little bit, and you add in a bunch of other natural disasters too, because it has these two moons that are orbiting so close that it was like they're going to eventually collide with the planet. But right now, it's a terrible place to live. There's some colonists there that have been stuck there for a very long time, and no one ever went back to get them. And he goes and he's like, I'm going to check this lead out, and also I'm going to maybe see if we can find something for the people here too. But anyway, so he meets this person named Gantoris, who we saw briefly in the beginning, and he's the leader of this settlement of 30 or 40 people. And Luke comes in, and two of the kids of the settlement were searching in this like canyon area for, I think they were called rock. It's like something reminiscent of rock cockroach or something, but they like use them for food because they don't have any good food. So they're going down there looking for those, and there's an avalanche, and Luke arrives in time to help, move the rocks with the Force and save them. And unfortunately, one of the kids is crushed, but he does save one of them. And he's like, Gantoris, I need you to come train with me. Like, I want to show you, I feel the Force in you. And I want to show you how to use your Force powers. And Gantoris is like, no, like I've had this ability, and I don't want, like, I keep having dreams, these nightmares of this dark man coming in shrouded in darkness, and he destroys me, and I'm not going to go with you, because Luke's wearing his black Jedi outfit at this time, and he moves the rocks and displays his power. He's like, I'm not doing it. So Luke's like, fine, you can test me however you want. I'm going to stay here. Take your time, process it. So Luke stays, and then Gantoris takes him out into these geysers on the planet, down into the geyser area, like inside the geyser as a test. Luke doesn't know it's a test, but he's like, help me find these rock bugs. And he times it so that Luke is basically in there as it's about to go off. And Luke has to use the Force. He uses a Force jump. He gets out and he passes the test. Well, then he's like, this all culminates in Gantoris taking Luke into a volcano. And he's like, listen, if you pass this test, I'll go train with you. No questions asked, but you have to pass the test. So they bring Luke in. There's a lake of lava, and him and the villagers are on the other side, Gantoris. And he's like, all you got to do is cross over the lake. That's all you got to do. You get across, I'll go with you. And Luke's like, what? Okay. Like, I guess I'll do this. So he starts across, and he's using the Force and like balancing on these rocks, kind of dotting across the lake. And then midway across, he's like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. Like, I'm using the Force. Like, I'm a Jedi master. Like, this is working. Midway across, a freaking lava snake comes out of nowhere, and it's huge. It's like the basilisk from Harry Potter, but like covered in armor. Comes out. There's a fight. The supports that Luke was standing on slowly start getting destroyed. Lava spewing everywhere. He's using the Force to protect himself. It's actually really cool. Luke in this story has grown quite a bit, obviously, and he's really good. And he damages the scales, but it doesn't cut through. His lightsaber doesn't cut through, but he damages the scales, and it's enough when the snake goes back down in the lava. Like, it breaches, the lava breaches, and like basically boils it from the inside out. So the snake dies, but then Luke looks and doesn't have anything to walk across. So he just walks using the Force. He said, literally in the book, he like closes his eyes and concentrates and stuff, and all of a sudden, he's just on the other side. So I guess he used the Force to just walk across the top of the lava. But he makes it.
Or he just. That's the thing. Like, I feel like Jedi should be able to Force lift themselves.
Well, he does in the expanded universe, by the way. Brief moments of levitation, yeah. So they had some wild stuff going on back in the 90s, let me tell you. But so he makes it, and Gantoris is like, sweet, I'll go with you. He's like, awesome. And so then they go to Bespin, and he gets a lead, and he goes to Bespin, where we meet Streen, who was the older man that was in the beginning. And he is a cloud gas, like Tabana gas prospector. And he lives by himself on one of the abandoned floating cities. It's not Cloud City, but it's one of the other floating cities. No one's there except for him. He's all alone. And what he does is he is able to sense these gas like plumes and explosions and stuff before they happen, so that he can be there. And he's like a balloon contraption that he flies around, and he's able to gather the gas and sell it before anyone else. And that's how Luke was able to find him. And come to find out, he's there because he's able to pick up on the thoughts and the feelings of other people, like hyper aware. And so he lives in isolation because he doesn't like being around people. Like, people are loud, he can hear their thoughts, and it drives him mad. And so he's like, I want to be up here by myself. So Luke and Gantoris go, and they meet Streen, and Luke's trying to persuade him. And Luke is basically like, I can teach you how to shut that off. I can teach you how to filter those things in the Force and hone this ability so that it's not as bothersome. And he's like, okay, he finally, they do like a Force exercise up there. Huh? What'd you say?
Just keep going.
So they do like a little Force exercise on the Cloud City like place, where they like move a piece of metal and make birds fly away. And Streen's like, oh, I can like do something with this. And so he goes with Luke. So they go back to Coruscant. And at this point, Leia's like, look, Han's not back, and I need you to go look for him, Luke. So Luke and Lando take Lando's ship to Kessel. And this is where the stories kind of start converging. And they disguise themselves as potential investors. Oh, because I forgot to tell you, Lando follows a lead for Luke to this one place where they do like blob races. Literally, blob races. It's like horse racing for luxurious people, but they're blobs. And Lando follows this lead where they think this guy's like getting really, really lucky on the races, and they think it's Force, but he's actually cheating. And come to find out, he's this queen from a neighboring planet, one of her like consorts. And in the process of taking him back to her, he gets a reward, some reward money. It's like 1 million credits. And so he's like, I'm going to go and act like I'm going to invest this money into Kessel. And then we're going to see if Han's there. So what they do is they disguise themselves as these investors. Luke's his assistant and like pilot person. And the whole point is Lando is going to get them in by like acting like he's got a business deal. And Luke is just going to be scanning the whole time, just boom, boom, looking for Han everywhere with his Jedi radar. And so there's nothing. They don't find anything. They're being toured around by Morth, and there's nothing. And then they go up to the garrison moon, and all of a sudden they see the Falcon, and Lando's like, Luke, this is the Falcon. And Luke's like, are you sure? He's like, no, I know this ship anywhere. So then Lando turns
in the EU, like, well, I guess so. Never mind. I was gonna say, well, in the EU, did Han steal the ship from?
In the EU, Han wins it from Lando and Sabak.
Right. But I was like, of course, because the movies are still canon.
Yeah.
So
fun fact, Han and Lando play for ownership of the Falcon, play Sabak another 2 or 3 times in these books alone.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying that now.
And it changes hands 2 or 3 more times over the course of these books until finally it ends up with Han. Lando actually wins it and then gifts it to Han. And they're like, okay, we're not doing this again. But it literally changes hands like 2 or 3 times. But anyways, so they find the Falcon.
They're just playing to play.
Huh?
At a certain point, they're just playing it, just play it.
It's a pride thing.
Like, I won, but here you go. It's like a pity thing.
Yeah. Well, it's really because Lando's trying to hit on Mara Jade in the third book, which does not work. She is not having. Anyways, so they find the Falcon. Lando confronts Morth Duel, and they start flying away.
Duel?
Huh?
Do they duel?
Get out! There we go. So they start flying away, and Duel scrambles all of his garrison after them, and they are also overwhelmed. Even though the Falcon has been repaired, they're also overwhelmed. And right as they think they're about to get destroyed, what comes out of the mall? The Sun Crusher, and right behind it, a whole contingent of Star Destroyers. So it's like the perfect storm. It's like the Falcon is being chased by Morth Duel's people. The Sun Crusher is being chased by the Star Destroyers out of the mall, and they just converge at the same spot. And then the Admiral Dala thinks, oh, these are rebels trying to, because like they're firing into space where the Falcon is, but then the Star Destroyers here, so they're being fired on. And she's like, oh, the rebels set a trap for us. Like, we need to fight back. And they start engaging with Morth Duel's people. Oh. And in the process of that happening, Han and Lando, they like connect, and they're like, the Falcon has to slave into the Sun Crusher circuits because it was damaged. Some of the sensors were damaged going through the mall. And so they have to like couple together and go into hyperspace that way. But like literally they use that as a distraction to get away. I was like, you really couldn't think, you couldn't ask for better timing.
Picturing like that meme from the Umbrella Academy where the two people are driving past each other.
Yeah. Dude, that happens another 2 or 3 times where people just miss each other. It's kind of funny. So anyways, so they bring the Sun Crusher back, and Luke picks up Streen and Gantoris because Leia finds a suitable place in the midst of all this with the help of Mon Mothma, and that happens to be Yavin 4. So they decide to hold Luke's temple, which is actually ends up being called a Praxium instead, in the great temple that the rebels hid in on Yavin 4 as like a place, a grounds for training. So at the very end of the book, they have the Sun Crusher under lock and key. They're analyzing it, but the New Republic has possession of that. Luke senses Kip. He does the test on Kip with the like touch the mind thing and gets blown back across the room. And he's like, yo, you have so much potential, dude. And do you want to come train? He's like, no, I'm not ready yet. Like, I want to live life first. And so he and Han go off to kind of live life and have fun for a little bit. And then the Sun Crusher's safe, and Luke begins with his first 2 students, and that's the end of the first book.
Fun.
All right.
So yeah. So before we dive into the second one, I think what Luke needed at the beginning, because it's a daunting task starting an academy for Jedi. I think the thing that he needed was a boost. And I couldn't think of a better boost than coffee.
Yeah. Well, what kind of coffee would you recommend?
Wesley Andrews.
Wow. Coincidentally,
he says.
That's our sponsor for today.
Hey, yo.
As always, Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So I was about to say, did you forget where they were?
No.
Out of the Midwest somewhere.
Somewhere on planet Earth 616 or whatever. What is the Marvel designation for it?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
I think it's 616. But anyway, yes. So if you like coffee and or tea, please use our promo code, and let's take a listen to the commercial for that right now.
Hey everyone, Andrew here. I'm pleased to tell you that the sponsor of today's episode is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea. If you don't know anything about Wesley Andrews, you definitely should. They're an award-winning coffee roaster and shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they make fantastic coffee. The awesome thing is that whether you live in the Twin Cities or not, you can get their coffee beans delivered straight to your door by ordering them online. They even have a subscription service that ensures you never run out of amazing coffee. If you've been looking for some new coffee to try or a way to elevate your normal coffee routine, now's your chance. Head over to wesleyandrews.cc, use the code Empire Radio, that's with a capital E and a capital R with no space at checkout, to get 15% off your first purchase of any bags of coffee or a coffee subscription. I can't think of a better deal. Get 15% off some great coffee, support a small business, and support your favorite Star Wars podcast. In the words of Emperor Palpatine, do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
All right. Cool. Well, part 2, Dark Apprentice.
Yep.
Let's
So now
jump
that
into
we've
this one.
Yeah, now that we've kind of set the foundation for what is happening, I'm going to try to go through things a little bit more quick because we still have 2 books and I don't want to be here forever. But this is what is called Dark Apprentice, the second book in the trilogy. And I don't know if you can guess why it's called that.
That one guy goes to the dark side.
Which guy?
The guy that was in the mines. Was it? Was that Kip?
See, I should the way that I shouldn't have said anything because the way that the book set it up, and this is a very interesting very interesting place to start with the second book. They really make you think. They really make you think it's going to be Gantoris. They really do, because like in all the scenes with him and the rest of the students, and he's like kind of brooding and like a little standoffish. He's not mean or anything, but he's kind of this like more mysterious, big, dark figure. And you kind of get the sense you're like, is he the Dark Apprentice that I'm reading about? Like in the, because you know what the name of the book is. You're like, okay, something happens.
Right.
And then on the cover of the book, there's like this hooded figure, this like spectral hooded figure.
It's this on the.
Oh yeah. It's in the presentation. Yeah. So it's like you're like, oh, who's the person? Like you don't know. So at the beginning of this, there's some moments of them. I'm skipping ahead because the first thing that happens in this book is kind of shocking, but we'll get back to that. As far as Luke's thing is concerned, there's a lot of training stuff that happens, and I think it's really cool. There's some other Force students that show up, and they start training, and it's kind of cool to see Luke being a Jedi Master, and like you see him be a little uncertain at times. That's nice, Drew. You see him be a little uncertain about himself at times, but he's like really doing a good job. Like we've seen Luke be this really powerful warrior up until this point in the expanded universe, and now we see him like really kind of growing into his role as a really awesome teacher. And he has very little to go on because, you know, he doesn't have the ancient Jedi text, but he does have the holocron that they got in Dark Empire, and uses that pretty heavily to instruct the students. But he pulls from his old training on Dagobah and stuff that he's been through, and he starts training them. And then kind of out of nowhere, you start realizing that like Gantoris is like constructing a lightsaber by himself in his room at night. But you're like, wait a second, Luke hasn't taught anyone how to build a lightsaber. Like, where is he getting that from? Come to find out, he has 3 crystals in it, which allows him to like change the links in the intensity. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of wild. His lightsaber's like
something I've never thought of before. Like a lightsaber with multiple crystals, like what you could do with that.
Well, so here's the thing. In this section where he's doing it late at night, and he's talking about his lightsaber, and he's like basking in this creation that he's been making for weeks. And he's like, I've followed the main design, but every Jedi made their lightsaber their own, and they added their own modifications. And then like, it's like mine has been 3 crystals. And you don't find out until later what it does, but it allows him to like change the length of the blade and the intensity of the blade. It's like, it gives him like extra controls on the fly. Keep in mind, this is before the Phantom Menace.
Right. So like with dual bladed sabers, is that 2 crystals or just 1 crystal?
It would be 2.
Okay. I never even.
It would be 2. But this one he had a single blade with 3 crystals that allowed him to like, it was basically like a kind of like a Swiss. It was like
Swiss
the memes from The Force Awakens, but not really.
Well, there's a video of that like before the movie came out, like them like turning because from the teaser trailer from the first,
Yeah.
like when he flinks it out, like people are doing it like random shapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
But I thought that was really cool. But you really think he's going to be the one, because you find out. I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit here, but you find out that the spirit of Exar Kun has been talking to him.
Ooh.
Yeah. And come to find
Exar Kun again.
the Sith Lord. We haven't discussed him.
Oh, okay.
But that's the one, Exar Kun. I don't know if it's Kun or Kun, but
one of the characters. Okay,
yeah, he's the Sith Lord, but his spirit,
Right.
He's been dead for a millennia, but his spirit begins to talk to Cantoris. And you really do think at the beginning of the book, you're like, oh, it's him. He's the dark side. He's talking to the Sith Lord. But anyways, we'll get to that. So the book opens. Leia and Akbar are flying in a B-Wing, a special two-seater B-Wing, to this planet for this special event that they haven't had in years since the Empire. It's these people that have this crystalline cathedral, and it's full of holes, and the people themselves go up and they clog certain holes with their bodies, and like when the winds come in at the beginning of the season, it makes music. And every time they do it, it's not like no two are the same. It's like this crazy cool thing. Well, Leia, they're going to see it. She's acting as an ambassador, and then something really tragic happens. So it's the planet is surrounded by really intense storms, and the flight control, they're like, look, Akbar, you need to go, who by the way is a really great pilot in the expanded universe. He's like, you need to follow this course exactly. Like, we're going to send it to you. Follow this exactly, or you're not going to make it. So they go in. They start flying, and stuff starts hitting the fan pretty fast. Like, he starts losing control of the B-Wing. It's not responding very well. He realizes a few different spots in the journey in that like he's really far off course, and he tries to correct himself. And like Leia's pretty scared, and they end up coming down through the storm, and they realize they're on a collision course with the cathedral. And Akbar tries to correct, and he's like, the B-Wing isn't responding. And come to find out, one of the wings is like stuck at a weird angle, and he physically can't move it. And there's this moment, I read it to Micaiah, and I got done reading it to her, and she was like, oh my gosh. Because of the way he describes this, it's so gut-wrenching. But basically, he puts up a crash shield around the B-Wing, ejects Leia. He looks at her and goes, I'm sorry, Leia. Tell them I'm sorry. Ejects her. Erects a crash shield around the B-Wing, plows straight through the cathedral, and crashes. And like hundreds of these beings die because it's crystalline. So it's glass. Like, it's essentially glass shards.
Oh, that's
And like, she is in the air coming down in her like repulsor lift ejector seat. And she's like sobbing, and it describes the sounds that she hears of like this weird, like eerie musical tones intermixed with these blood curdling screams. I mean, like the things coming down, it came down in slow motion. Like, it's really vividly described. And you're like, oh my gosh, did Admiral Akbar just die? Like, I thought he died. Good thing he didn't. He doesn't die, but they don't tell you that right away. And you're like, first chapter of this book, Admiral Akbar dies. Hundreds of these aliens are dead.
Fun.
Yeah. So we find out, and this is the first time they've had it in like 7 years, this ceremony.
that death was cooler than his actual real death.
Yeah, it was. So they come back, and Akbar is just distraught. Like, he's such a good guy, and so for him to have that accident on his shoulders, it's just the shame is unbearable to him. So he resigns. He resigns as admiral, and he's like, "I'm going back to Mon Cala. Like, I'm done with this.
Really?
I can't be a general anymore. Like, I'm going to go back and just be with my people and live as a hermit under the sea by myself. Like, I can't face the New Republic anymore." It's worth noting that he has a friend, another Mon Calamari friend, who is part of his like core group of mechanics for the New Republic, and he had him run some Teppan, I think his name is, run some tests on and some analysis on what happened with the B-wing, just to make sure, because Akbar was like, "Yo, it malfunctioned," and all of the analysis came back that it was pilot error because of the storm, and he's just mortified. And so he resigns. Well, right after he resigns, Ambassador Fergan comes to visit the New Republic. Dude's an a-hole. Like the biggest butthole you could ever imagine. Still loyal to the Empire. Comes and like just talks so much crap about the government being like the rebel scum that's moved into the Emperor's old home. It's just like they are clearly the sitting government of the galaxy. And he is so disrespectful to them, like the entire time, like really, really disrespectful. Like bosses lay around. It's like commands her last minute to give him a tour of the Imperial Palace, makes her change her schedule and all this stuff. It's really bad. They have this reception, and during the reception, all the leaders of state are there. He throws a drink in Mon Mothma's face.
Dang.
By the way, he carries stormtroopers around with him as his personal guard. So there are stormtroopers. There are stormtroopers there.
Like,
well, because they're trying to be diplomatic and not like cause another war, because there's been enough war. They're trying to win him over to the New Republic by being nice and not trying to fight them. So it's a really weird time. And so he like throws a drink in her face at this reception, and then gets everyone's attention first, does that, and then is like, by the way, we don't acknowledge your rebel scum government, and we'll never be a part of it, and long live the Empire, and then he leaves. And you're just like, dude just did that in freaking public, in front of Leia, in front of the twins,
with his
like
eyebrows.
With his freaking eyebrows. He's a really crummy guy. So that doesn't go well, nearly as well as you think it will. And so then we find out that Mon Mothma, shortly after that, you find out that Mon Mothma is really sick. Like really, she starts getting sick, and no one really knows what's going on with her. No one knows what disease she has. And like, at this point, they find out that Admiral Dalla has been out and is kind of like lingering. Like her skirmish with Kessel ended, and she pretty much wiped the floor with him, and she hasn't been seen since. And they're like, okay, we've got this Imperial strike force of 3 Star Destroyers, which is still very formidable out there. Like, we need all the help we can get. And so Leia's like, we've got to get Admiral Akbar back. It's like Mon Mothma's starting to get sick. We don't know what's going on with her. Fergan just did what Fergan does, and we don't know what's going to happen with Caridia. And then basically we need all hands on deck. Like, we need leadership to help stabilize the government. So she goes to Mon Calamari. She meets up with Gilgal. Gilgal? Gilhal? I'm going to go back real quick and read the name. Kilgal. There we go. That's the name of the person. Kilgal. The Mon Calamari, who at this time is an ambassador. She's an ambassador for Mon Cala, and she helps Leia find Admiral Akbar. And they go, it's kind of cool. There's this brief moment where they go down under the water and basically meet a clam, a big clam that is kind of the life force of Mon Cala. It like basically knows everything that's going on because of the life forms that it's connected with. And so it's like how they kept information flowing under the Imperial rule. They could do it in secret. It's kind of cool. It's pretty cool. So they find out
where in James Cameron's Avatar, like that giant tree.
The giant tree, yes. It's worth noting, by the way, I almost forgot this. The reason why the big like straw that breaks the camel's back, and like Leia's like, I need to go find Akbar. So this is what happens. They find the colonists from El Shah that Gantoris was from. They make good on their promise. They find them a colony on Dantooine, which is a very temperate, lovely, just like chill Earth-like world. They set them up, and the people are just thriving. They have like prefabricated homes. They give them farming equipment. Like they basically give them everything they need to build a society for themselves. And the New Republic does, and they're thriving, and everything's going super well. And then come to find out, Dalla finds out about the colony, and she goes and levels it.
Oh, nice.
Everyone dies. Every single person dies, and it's also kind of graphic. Every single person dies, and they level it, and that's when Leia's like, we need Akbar back. Like this can't. Things hitting the fan, and like we need it back. So she goes, huh?
Political anymore. We have to stop this.
Yeah, like this is an actual threat, and we need help. So she goes to find Akbar, and
she acts on it.
Anyway,
get out, please get out. Anyways, so they after some searching, they find him, and she's like, Admiral Akbar, we need you back. Like, please come back and help the New Republic. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm too ashamed. I cannot show my face. Because they're like, they have a reparations committee, the New Republic does, and they're like helping them rebuild their temple and stuff. And it's really awkward because like you can tell the aliens know it was an accident, right? But they're like, yeah, our millennia-year-old temple is also destroyed. The first time we try to do it after the Empire's reign. So it's like they're in this weird place with the aliens. Like they're still a part of the Republic. They're still kind of nice about it, but they're also really pissed off. And so Admiral Akbar's like, I'm not leaving. I can't. I'm just staying here. I'm not going to be an admiral anymore. You're not going to get me to do it. And Leia's like, all right, whatever. Is there anything I can do? And he's like, no. Well, then Dalla decides to attack Mon Cala.
Nice.
While they're on the planet. And she starts an orbital bombardment and starts destroying the cities.
Is it stated why she specifically
targeted? Great question.
planet?
Very great question. So she understands that she does not have the backing of the full Empire. So she's pissed off. And she's like, I just want to go out and cause as much damage to the New Republic as possible. And the colony on Dantooine was like, hey, I'm here, but it was kind of a test run because like keep in mind, her soldiers have not seen combat for over a decade. So she's like, let's get our feet wet. We're going to do some really evil stuff.
Thrawn's troopers.
Yeah. So that was the first strike. And then she's like, okay, now we're going to strike at the heart of the New Republic. And there's a shipyard around Mon Cala, which is, they're famous for their battle cruisers. And she's like, we're going to go attack this shipyard. And we're going to like cripple the New Republic's ability to make warships. And that's why they attack. They're like, we're going to make a bit more of like an open strike against the New Republic. So they attack. And what happens is as they're attacking the cities, TIE fighters are strafing it, bombers are going, the turbo lasers are like decimating stuff. She's got 3 Star Destroyers in orbit. Only 2 of them are attacking. And the whole point was it's a diversion. She wants to get the Mon Calamari forces engaged in defending their cities. And then when all of the fighters that are around the orbital space dock and stuff are involved with the 2 Star Destroyers, she's planning on coming in and destroying the docks, essentially, as after a diversion. Well, in the process of all this, Kilgal, Leia, and Akbar are moved into action because of this, because this starts happening while they're there, and Akbar's like, no, you're not doing this to my people again. So he goes into the command room in the main city, in one of the main cities, and he's like, yo, like let me see what's going on here, see if I can help. Well, he recognizes the pattern of the attack because Dalla is one of Tarkin's students as a tactician. He's like, this is one of Tarkin's, he apparently worked with Tarkin he was forced to under Imperial, his occupation. And he's like, I know what Tarkin. This is got Tarkin written all over it. And he's like, we pulled everything away from the space docks, and he's like, they're going to attack the dock. And he's like, okay, pull everything else we've got away from it, make it look like we're engaged in this fight. And that one of the calamari, he does it, y'all. One of the Mon Calamari people is like, sir, are you sure you want to do that? He's like, that's a suicide mission. And he looks at him, he goes, he does the thing. He does. He looks at him and he goes, no, it's a trap. And I went, yes, he said the thing. It's like literally the last sentence in a chapter too, for emphasis. Just, he's like, no, basically we're setting up a trap for them. So, the Star Destroyer that Dalla had in reserved comes out of, because she's in one of the two that's attacking, comes out from behind one of the moons, and Akbar takes remote control of the ship that they had like almost finished, and it's this big dreadnought class ship. He takes remote control of the ship from the planet, pulls the ship out with its engines, the whole dock goes with it, and drives the dock and the ship into one of the Star Destroyers remotely, completely takes the Star Destroyer out.
Fun.
It's so BA. And so like now Dalla has lost one Star Destroyer in the mall. And now after her second strike, which wasn't actually successful technically, she has now lost another Star Destroyer. Because the New Republic couldn't get there in time to save them. So Admiral Akbar was like, yo, I got to do something. And just right into him. And so then the New Republic forces show up right at the end of the battle. And Dalla's like, oh, shoot, I got to go. We got to leave. And so she goes. And then it's not good. She does not do well. And then she lost another Star Destroyer. And then they leave. And then Admiral Akbar still does not go back with Leia.
What?
Yeah. He's like, I can't go back to the New Republic, but I do need to help my people. He's like, I'm not going to be a hermit, but I'm going to help my people rebuild and help lead my people here. So that's kind of what's happening with the other stuff. So then there's another subplot where Qui is paired up with Wedge Antilles, who is now her new bodyguard, because they're like, the Empire's probably going to try to get her back, so we need to have a bodyguard with her. Basically,
Wedge is the bodyguard?
Yep.
Why him? He's a pilot.
Yeah, but he's competent. He's a competent warrior. He's he's been through the whole rebellion thing. He's a figurehead. Well, there's a subplot where they fall in love. Essentially, which is great. Like he shows her a galaxy she's never known before.
A whole new galaxy.
Yeah, so they go to the planet. They go to the planet Ithor, where the Ithorians live, and it's like a paradise, like a retreat. And they get really close. They get really, really close, and like they almost start a relationship. You're rooting for them too, and then something really bad happens. But I need to backtrack a little bit before I get to that. So on the planet Yavin 4, the moon of Yavin, they're training. Luke's doing all his Jedi stuff, and Gantoris is slowly, as I mentioned before, you think he's turning to the dark side, and you're like, this is awesome. Like, we're going to have some internal problems. This is where Luke's really going to get to shine. So Gantoris makes his lightsaber and he challenges Luke. He's starting to get more angry, and he's like, now I'm a true Jedi. Like my test of building a lightsaber, like, look, I've done it. And it's like this really cool blade that's like violet, and it has some like rainbow elements to it. It's really cool looking. And they have this whole duel, and Luke pretty much mops the floor with him. And he's like, it's way more than just building a lightsaber, dude. Like, you need to control your anger, and essentially kind of makes an example of him in front of his students. Well, then it kind of wakes him up, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I've not been in the best headspace. And he's like, my lightsaber's cool, but I've not been doing well. So he goes back to his room that night, and this dark spirit of Exar Kun shows up to him again, and you find out who it is for the first time in the novel. And he's like, he stands up to him, and he's like, I am not going to stand up, or I'm not going to be like pushed around by you anymore. And he fries him. Exar Kun burns him to a crisp. Yeah.
Oh.
All
Yep.
right.
So immediately I was like, oh, so he's not the Dark Apprentice. He's dead. So he dies right under the nose of everyone, and it's of course a shock to the Jedi at the Jedi Temple. Around this time, Kip, who has been off with Han, they actually go to one of the polar caps of Coruscant. They're skiing. There's a whole skiing scene, and Kip's like,
Coruscant?
yeah, they have mountains up on one of the polar caps.
Okay.
But it's like a resort. It's not like wilderness.
Ski lifts and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So there's a whole scene, and then Kip's like, I gotta go, and so I need to go train now. And it's really heartfelt because Han and him have gotten really close, and Han's like actually he like cries a little bit when Kip leaves,
What?
and yeah, they've gotten kind of close, and so he's like it's like this like almost like a father-son relationship going on because Kip's still like a teenager or like late teens, and so Kip leaves, and the New Republic realizes that they need to destroy the Sun Crusher, which they still have control over. And they're like, we can't destroy it anyway, any normal way. So we're just going to put it in the middle of a star where no one can get to it. Because like we can't dismantle it, we can't blow it up, we can't melt it. So we're just going to put it somewhere where it's really, really, really hard to get to. And so they're like, we're going to put it in the middle of Yavin, the gas giant Yavin. And so they're like, Kip, if you want to ride, we'll take you to Luke's temple while we're on the way. So they do that. They put the Sun Crusher, they autopilot it straight into the middle of Yavin, where it is supposedly going to rest for all of eternity there, where no one can get to it. Kip begins his training. Very quickly, you realize that this is very shortly. Kip shows up very shortly after Gantoris' death. And so very quickly you realize he has a ton of skill. He starts getting good really fast. And it's like, he starts really setting himself apart from the rest of the students. He's a ton of like just crazy natural force abilities. His training starts going really, really well. And then come to find out, Exar Kun's spirit begins tempting Kip. He gets to Kip a little bit. His powers begin to increase more. He's tainted by the dark side. Kun lies at one point and tells him like a false history of the Jedi Order and begins like seeding doubt into Kip. And all of a sudden he changes it. So he's like, he really can't trust Luke anymore. He's like, what you're teaching me is not as powerful. It's not as valuable. Like you can't, like basically he begins to think he's surpassed the whole teachings that Luke is doing because it's very peaceful and it's meditative and stuff like that. Like they go out in twos into the jungle and explore and like use their senses to do things. And like Kip's like, dude, what are we doing? Like the Empire's still out there. We need to destroy the Empire. Why aren't we moving? And Luke's like, it's not our place. And Kip's like, well, screw you then if you're not going to do anything. And so he ends up, he goes out one day and finds an old temple from an old temple of Exar Kun. And you come to find out, as a Sith Lord, he had a brotherhood of Sith, and they had settled on Yavin 4. And he used these Masasi people, who were originally the natives on Yavin, who built the temples, to create these temples for him to funnel his powers. Mm-hmm. And the owner of the holocron, Vimada Boda, was Exar Kun's master, very old master. And so there's a tie in there. And come to find out, the old Jedi of old band together and killed him along with the rest of the Masasi people. Like there had to be a sacrifice made, and he captures or lashes his spirit onto these temples and these places. And so he's kind of dormant for a millennia. But now that there are Force users here, he starts poking feelers out and starts messing with people. So when Kip gets to the temple, Exar Kun tells him all of this and begins to really like try to teach him the ways of the dark side. Well, it works. And after a certain point, him and Luke have an argument and he leaves. So Mara Jade ends up showing up to train. She brings a Z95 headhunter with her. And Kip just like, they have one final argument and Kip just leaves. He steals the ship and just leaves. He's like, I'm like a super angsty teenager. Like, I'm done. He's gone.
And he knows how to fly a ship.
Oh yeah.
When he was like a slave.
Force. Like, well, he flew the Sun Crusher.
Well, I guess.
So. So he flies off as an angsty teenager, and Luke's pretty distraught. He's like, "Oh man, I'm already losing someone to the dark side." It's like, darn it, he doesn't really know what to do. And at one point, while Kip's gone, Exar Kun tries to come to Luke in a vision in the form of his father, Anakin, and tries to like sway him to the dark side. And Luke's like, "Dude, no, I'm not doing that." And then they basically, Exar Kun basically declares war on Luke, and his spirit does. So while Kip's off, he goes to Endor, and he's searching for the pyre site for Darth Vader, because he's like, I can't fully trust Exar Kun. I know he's trying to manipulate me. However, what Luke is teaching me is not right either. And so I've got to find my own path, and I'm trying to get in contact with the only other Sith Lord that is in recent history, which is Darth Vader. So he goes to this burial site where Luke burned him at the end of Return of the Jedi. And he finds the spot, talks about how like cold and dead, like stuff hadn't grown back over the forest hadn't grown back and stuff. And he doesn't really find anything in terms of Darth Vader, but he comes to this realization while he's there. He's like, I am going to have to do this myself. He kind of takes, he self-proclaims himself the new Lord of the Sith.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And he's like, I have to be this authority in the universe now because the Empire has to be stopped. So it's really strange because it's not like he's pure evil. He like genuinely wants to stop the remnant of the Empire for the New Republic, but he's going to do it through a really evil way, essentially. Like that's kind of his dedication. That he's
probably because he lived in darkness for so long.
Wow, it's great. It was a good one. I appreciate it. There you go. Jeremiah's unfazed. So he decides he's going to do that, which brings us back to the story with Wedge and Qui. So you're rooting for him. You're really rooting for him. There's a moment their rooms are across the hall from one another, and there's this really just precious moment where they finally kiss.
Is he Wedge closer to her? Okay, I'm done.
What is wrong with you tonight, dude?
Dude, boo. So anyways, they finally kiss, and there's this really sweet moment, and they're both like giddy. I mean, it's just like, it's pure and innocent, right? Like, it's just like the perfect little romance in the middle of all this. He's showing her things she's never seen before, and it's just precious. And she goes back into her room, and there's this moment where, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but she like closes the door and like slides up against it and is like elated. And
oh my gosh,
you think you're like, yes, it finally happens. It finally happened. Like, you're shipping them so hard. And then she opens her eyes, and there is someone in her room. Like, literally the best moment. It's the pinnacle. You don't see it coming. And all of a sudden she's like, it's this person shrouded in darkness. And she's like, oh no, it's Darth Vader. And you're like, no, wait. You come to find out it's Kip. He walks up to her, puts his hand on her head. It says in the book that she feels like he's about to crush her head. But then she feels him going through her mind and brutally pulling out like knowledge and memory and stuff.
Dang.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to do this. I'm taking this on myself. I'm going to do what needs to be done. He literally rips all of her mind out that's related to her working on the weapons so that she can't ever do it again. But she, like, it's so sad because she's completely devoted to the New Republic and like never doing that again. But he doesn't know that.
Became a good person, but
she really like, you really start to like the two of them together, her and Wedge, and then all of a sudden, whole parts of her memory are completely gone. Like, she can't find them. And like the next morning, Wedge finds her in her room in a corner, like just sobbing, like grasping at her head, trying to remember things. She like barely remembers Wedge's name. And like, you're like, no, they were about to be in a freaking relationship. Dude, it's so sad.
Wedge
It's
walked
really,
in there. He thought he did something wrong. She can't remember. Oh, I can't.
it's really sad. It's really sad.
But was she able to like communicate to Wedge that like Kip showed up and did this?
She had no memory of what happened.
Oh,
She has memory.
sucks.
She has memories, some memories from her like childhood, and like a little memories of the night before. But everything in between that is just like most of her adult life, her life working in the Imperial installation is gone. And like she doesn't remember. It's so sad. Like she's so distraught. She's in such bad shape. She does remember Wedge a little bit, and they start kind of rekindling their relationship again. But it's like, yo, this sucks. This is the worst timing ever. So,
It's like 50 First Dates all over again.
it really is. It really is kind of though. So then, Kip, he's like, I know what I need to do next. And he goes to Yavin, back to Yavin. No one knows he's there. He comes in kind of in the early morning, and he goes up to the top of the temple. That's what I'm trying to say. And he channels Exar Kun's spirit and becomes incredibly powerful in the Force for a second. And with the Force, pulls the Sun Crusher out of the center of the gas giant.
Dang.
Yeah, like
What
I'm talking.
the heck?
Yeah, it's like he's insanely powerful. Like he goes in with the Force and yanks it out against all of the gravity, against all of the forces working against it. He pulls it back out and brings it to a rest on top of the temple of Yavin. He's like, I'm about to take this out, and we're gonna start hitting the Empire where it hurts. Well, Luke senses him, gets up and goes to the top of the temple, and he's like, yo, dude, you've got to stop. Like, Exar Kun's lying to you. Like, at this point, he doesn't know that he's messed with Quee's mind or anything, but, like, he's not really past the point of no return yet. And Luke's like, you've got to stop. Like, this is not the true Jedi way. And Kip's, like, completely blinded. He's like, nothing you say is going to work. You're weak. Like, at one point, he's like, I'm embarrassed to even have studied under you. Like, it's like this completely different person. And Luke's like, don't make me hurt you. Like, I don't want to hurt you. And he draws his lightsaber, and Kip's like, LOL, you're not going to be able to hurt me. Like, I'm too powerful now. And Exar Kun is also there, kind of like egging Luke on through his spirit. And Luke draws his lightsaber, and before he can get like a single swing in, like, they knock him back with the Force, and then Kip does this like weird like black Sith lightning thing, completely overwhelms Luke, and literally puts him in stasis. Luke's spirit is completely separated from his body.
What the heck?
It's wild. So he's still alive. His body is still alive, but he is completely separated from his body.
So is he able to like? Is he conscious? Like his spirit?
Well,
like
we'll
is
get
it
there.
like Doctor Strange doing that thing where he kicks the person's
kind
soul out
of,
and he's
but
like
we'll
standing
get
there
there.
by his body.
We'll get there.
Okay.
And then after that, one of the last things you see in the book is Kip goes and finds Admiral Dalla's Force, her remaining 2 Star Destroyers. She's hiding in a nebula, and she's basically licking her wounds. And you hear her talk about this plan. She's like, all right, we're not doing well. So we're going to strike. We're going to do one final strike against the New Republic, and it's going to be the greatest strike. She basically devises a plan. And this is one of the things that I could see why people would be like, this is great setup, but he doesn't follow through with it. Because this would have been really, really freaking cool had they gone through it, and it never happens. But she devises this plan. She's like, we're going to bring everything from one of the Star Destroyers over to mine. There's going to be a skeleton crew on the other one. We're going to come out of hyperspace right above Coruscant. We're going to rig the reactors to go supercritical, and we're literally going to ram the planet with the Star Destroyer. And she was like, she does the simulations, and like millions and millions of people are going to die. Like it's like it sets off a chain reaction, like a tectonic chain reaction, and it's not just the Star Destroyer, but there's like building collapses and earthquakes and like all of these like it's
right, because it's all the different levels on top of each
Yeah.
other. So if it starts collapsing, it
Yeah. So it's devastating. Like Coruscant would never be the same again. And I'm like, yo, this is really bad, but this is a really, really good plan. Like, yo, this is finally she's doing something. She's like stepping it up, you know? Well, then Kip comes out of hyperspace with the Sun Crusher. And you're like, oh, son of a gun. We're not going to get to see this happen, are we? Well, he comes out, fires it into one of the stars by where she's hiding, and he just waits. He just waits. And she starts to leave, and he's like, no. She's supposed to be like, I got to keep her here because it takes like an hour and a half, 2 hours for the star for it to get to the center of the star. And so he waits for a while, and then right before it's supposed to go off, he's like, no, I've got to keep her here. And so he starts trying to attack the Star Destroyer, and like eggs are on. He's like, I don't know if you remember me, but you sentenced me to death, and now I have the Sun Crusher. And she's like, well, we got to get it back. Like this could change our plans. Like we could have a fighting chance. And then one of her crew members is like, hey, the star's doing something really weird. And she's like, hey, use the weapon. Like we got to get out. She like immediately realizes it, and she starts to leave, and the star explodes, and the whole nebula is wiped off the face of the map.
Fun.
Like the whole thing is gone. And so her plan never came to fruition. And one of the last things you see is Kip's like, all right, well, I know where I'm going next. I'm going to Carida, where I'm going to the military academy because it ruined my life early on and stole my brother from me, and they still support the Empire. So I'm going to go hit them where they're training their soldiers. And that's where the book ends.
Fun.
Yep. So now we've got he's used it. He actually used it, and he took out 2 Star Destroyers. Any questions?
Is she dead? Okay, well,
Based on that, she somehow survived.
At the end of this book, she's dead. Okay, jeez.
and she.
I just assumed that she was dead. So
Well,
I guess...
the book reads like she dies. Like the book really like strongly implies that she does, but she doesn't. Fun fact. So at the end of the book, Luke is completely comatose, and the students try to revive him, and they're distraught, and they're like, we don't know what to do. We don't have a teacher anymore. And basically, it's like the end of Empire where the enemy has won and no one knows what to do. And we finally got the first use of this weapon, and like you're like, oh, this is really powerful. Okay,
Imagine waiting a year to.
It wasn't a year. It was
no.
It's like 4 or 5 months.
Oh, never mind. It wasn't that.
Or like
then.
3 or 4 months actually. But
jeez.
But I mean, yeah, it was a pretty good cliffhanger for me. All right, so we ready to keep going?
Oh yeah,
of course.
All right, so this starts. So Leia and the kids, Jason and Jane. Oh, I totally forgot. There was a whole subplot in the second book. It's not really worth mentioning, but there's a whole subplot where 3PO and Chewie take Jason and Jaina to like this holographic zoo on Coruscant. They get away. They go down to like the lower levels of Coruscant, and they like have to find their way through with a bunch of scary things happening. And then they finally meet these like basically like these vagabond people who had been living there for decades, who end up being nice, and they take them back to their home. So, anyways, I honestly don't know why that part was in there, but anyways, so Leia and the kids go to see Luke at some point towards the beginning of the novel, but it really starts, I think it's part of it, but the main story at the beginning is Kip. He goes to Carida, or however you say it, He is still very much under the influence of Exar Kun at this point, but he flies there, and the whole point is that he wants to figure out what happened to his brother. This is something that I need to tell you too, really quickly. In the midst of all of this, you find out that Tepin, Admiral Akbar's chief mechanic he ran the report, you find out that he is actually a sleeper agent for the Empire against his will.
Oh, dang.
Ooh.
So I forgot to mention this, and I apologize. So right as Admiral Akbar is like, I want to leave, he says to Tepin, like, prepare a B-wing for me, and I'm not bringing it back. Like, I'm just going to go to Mon Calamari. Well, in the process of testing it to make sure it's space-worthy, he flies out and rendezvous with Ambassador Poopy Pants.
Eyebrow.
What?
Mr. Eyebrows?
Yeah, Fergan. He rendezvous with him, and you find out that while he was under Imperial occupation, he had been taken prisoner, and they literally removed parts of his brain and replaced them with these like organic controlling devices as part of his brain makeup, and it gives them complete control over his actions. Like, he's fully conscious, and they're like compulsions, but he can't do anything about them. And like when they call on him to do stuff, he can't. He's basically kept captive in his own head. And so you find out that he sabotaged Admiral Akbar's B-wing to cause the accident.
Oh.
And then you also find out that Ambassador Fergan uses him and the logs from Admiral Akbar's ship to find the location of Anakin Solo, who is supposed to be kept secret because Ambassador Fergan wants to use Anakin Solo and mold him into a young emperor, essentially, to resurrect the Empire.
Oh, dang.
Forgot to mention that, because right here, it's where this is kind of where everything culminates, because Ambassador Fergan is gathering a force. He knows the location of that, of Anakin Solo now, where him and Winter are in this like super remote location. And he's like, I'm preparing a ground force. He selects like 300 stormtroopers. They have these new MTAT walkers. It's like mountainous terrain attack transports or something. It's like an AT-AT, but it's a spider. It's basically a spider.
Fun.
And they're built for like mountainous missions and stuff. So at the beginning, you see him gathering his forces, and he's like, "We're about to go get this kid." And Kip shows up, and Kip's like, "Hey, so what happened to my brother? I need to know what happened to my brother." And Ambassador Fergan doesn't take him seriously, because Ambassador Fergan is a poop head, and he's full of himself. And he doesn't take Kip seriously. He doesn't realize what the Sun Crusher is. And so they're like, basically, stall. He tells one of his officers, stall him until we can get some TIE fighters up there and try to get the Sun Crusher back from this kid and basically kill him. And so the officer makes up a story. He's like, okay, yeah. Because Kip threatens him. He's like, you have 1 hour to get me the information, or I'm going to blow up your son, and everyone's going to die. And they're like, he's bluffing, so stall him, make up some information. And so he makes up the story about how like his brother just didn't make it through the stormtrooper training, and he died on a mountain. And he did save some of his other cadets, but he died, and he's long gone. And it enrages Kip and makes him super, super sad and everything. And he's like, dang, like, he knew it was coming, but it's always hard to hear that. He's like, I figured my brother was dead, but it's really tough to hear it. And then that he's attacked by TIE fighters, and they try to get it back, and he becomes enraged. And he's like, well, the Empire sucks. It took my brother from me. He died in the process of the training, and now you tried to trick me. So I'm going to blow up your son. So he does. He fires the weapon into their son. And dude, come to find out, his brother was alive.
Bro.
Yeah, so because you find out the officer just like made up a bogus story, and then Fergan realizes that he fired it, and he's like, "Oh my, we are literally, all of us are about to die. Like, we are literally about to die. Like, fine. Do you actually know if his brother's dead?" And the dude's like, "No, I don't know. Like, I made it up." He's like, "Freaking find his brother. Like, maybe he can stop the process, right?" Well, you know, as the reader, that it is irrevocable. Like, you cannot take those. There's no take backsies with this weapon. Like, there's no way to turn off the torpedoes. It's completely energy based. So once you've unleashed it, it's there's no going back. But he's like, he doesn't know that. He's like, find his freaking brother. So at this point, the time begins to pass. Kip's just waiting there, waiting for this to happen and waiting for this military academy and the rest of the planet, mind you, to be destroyed. Well, then they raise him on the comms. And at this point, he's got like 20 minutes before the estimated time that the sun explodes. And they're like, "Hey, by the way, we found your brother. He's alive." And Kip is just like, "Oh no." Like, I can't take this back. Ambassador Fergan's like,
done.
like, yeah, seriously. He's like, "Yo, we'll get you your brother. Like, turn it off." And he's like, "I can't turn it off. It's too late." And so now Kip is freaking out because does
he want to destroy the Imperial stuff anyway?
Yes.
But his brother's
So, like, why is he really
off the
regret
planet
it
in
though?
20
Just
minutes.
because his
He
brother's
regrets
there?
it because his brother's gonna die.
Oh,
Think about it.
In 20 minutes.
So he gives him he lets them have like an hour. He's like, "Look, it's going to take about an hour. You can evacuate if you want to. Either way, your military academy and the world is doomed." And so they're evacuating over time, and he watches them leave. But then at like the 20-minute until destruction mark, he gets the communication, and his brother's on screen, and he's like, "There's no way my brother's going to get out in time," and his heart just sinks. And Ambassador Fergan has left with his strike force, left the officer that was helping him behind. The officer sobbing because he thought Ambassador Fergan was going to take him, and he stabs him in the back. And he's like, "All right, I'm coming to get you. Like, tell me where you are. I'm going to come get you." He's racing against the clock, and it's so sad. So he gets down there, and he's got like 5 minutes, and he's like, "Where are you at?" And his brother's like, "We're at this part of the tower." And Kip's like, I don't have time to get to you, so I'm just gonna blow the roof off." And he blows the roof off with the cannons, and he's like, okay, he's coming down. And in the process, the officer's like, "You've got to take me with you. You've got to take me with you." And he talks Kip into letting him take the officer with him. As he's lowering the Sun Crusher to let them both on board, the officer hits his brother upside the head with some debris and like knocks him. He's like bleeding from because he doesn't have a stormtrooper helmet on. So he hits him, and the officer, and Kip's like, "Screw that." And he tries to reach for the Sun Crusher, and Kip flies away a little bit, and he falls to his death, the officer. And then Kip's like trying to get his brother back. And so he's like, I'm going to have to go out of the hatch and like pull him in myself. And the star explodes. And the planet's close enough that it's like within about 30 seconds, the planet starts being vaporized. And Kip can't get to his brother in time, and like basically watches him incinerate out the window as he's flying away in the Sun Crusher. And you're like,
idiot.
You're like, dang, dude. Like billions of people just died. Yeah, but like you also killed your own brother, so he is not happy. Kip is not happy. So he's like, well, the Empire took my brother away from me again. It's kind of his fault, but you know, he's still mad. He's got to be mad at someone, so he's like, I'm going to go strike again. So this is where we come back to the Praxium. So Leia's there, the kids are there, the other Jedi are there. And at this point, by the way, Kilgal has joined at the end of the last book, Leia senses the Force in her. She's able to sense things before they're able to happen. And she has some ability to sense people's like physical states and stuff. So she's like, she could be a Jedi healer maybe. So she sends her to train there too. So she's there now. Everyone's kind of there together. And then they all have that moment where Obi-Wan felt with Alderaan, but like probably about 10 times worse because an entire system worth of people are destroyed. And it's a very similar moment. And this is the moment that brings Luke's consciousness back to the to the spectral plane. So you were like, like, is he awake? Is it like Doctor Strange? Well, up until this point, he was in a dark hole and couldn't get out. He was like completely separated from everything. Kind of like the sunken place from Get Out, if you've seen that movie.
Good movie.
So he's like in this weird limbo place of stasis where it's dark, he can't do anything. But then this like disturbance in the force brings him back, not to his body, but to in like a spectral form. But then he realizes, I can't talk to anybody. I can't say anything to anybody. I can barely move. Like, he doesn't really know how to move yet. He doesn't know how to use the force yet. His powers are super limited. And he's like, don't really know what to do. But they're taking care of his body this whole time. They're like making sure, he's still alive. And, they've got him laying in the great, the Great Hall at the end of A New Hope. They have him there on a table there with his lightsaber. He's just kind of in stasis. So he realizes that no one can see him and realizes like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to do something because this is not good. So then in the midst of all of this, they go back. Chewbacca and Wedge go back to the Maul installation to free the Wookiee slaves, and to try to get information about the weapons and stuff. And they decide that they're going to do that. And this like really, really briefly summarizes what happens. But they show up and the scientists like kind of try to fight back. But they don't do a really good job. And then the rebels pretty much take control of the base, and as they're searching through stuff, the overseer of the installation and some of the scientists that were still there, they basically set the thing to self-destruct, and then they get into the Death Star prototype and try to get out of the mall, which they do make it out, but they escape in this like Death Star prototype that's like only basically a wireframe. So at this point, Lando and Mara Jade meet, and Lando's like, hey, I want to take back control of Kessel. I want to start it as a business venture. The first time he was joking. This other time, he was like, I want to actually do this for real. And he makes a deal with Mara Jade, who runs the Smugglers Alliance, and they make an agreement to like get it back up and running, do it respectfully, like have droids instead of mine workers, like do the spice, basically do things right. So they agree to do that. And Han at this point, the reason why Chewie and Wedge go and Han doesn't go to the Maul installation is because Han he hears about what happens at Carida and is like, I need to go find Kip, because I'm the only one that can get through to him and speak to him. Like, I'm going to be the only, like, Luke's not going to be able to do it, obviously, because Luke is in stasis mode. So I need to go find him and talk some sense into him. And so Han goes and does that. Well, Lando needs to get to Kessel to meet Mara Jade. And Lando's like, hey, I can go with you and help you find Kip. You can take me in the Falcon. Also, you can drop me off at Kessel if we're near there. I need a ride, because in the process of the second book, he ends up leaving his ship, the one that him and Luke took. He leaves it there because he has to flee in the Falcon. So he's like, I can get my ship back and I can go to Kessel, and it can just work. It's like an Uber. You do your thing and I'll be along for the ride. So Han first goes to the nebula that was destroyed and sees that, right? And then he's like, where would I go? He's like, where would I go if I was Kip next? And he's like, oh, he would go to the core worlds. He's going to try to continue to strike at the Empire. So he's like, I've got to go core word that direction towards the core and see if we can find him before he,
Was there a joke?
I think he thought I said core world and core word. I think it was like a play on. Anyways,
My bad.
So Han goes in there, and while they're searching, it goes back to Luke, and Exar Kun begins to taunt Luke. He like shows up and he's like, "Look who's the spirit now, trick, like, gotcha." Like, and he starts antagonizing Luke, and Luke's like, "I can't really do anything right now, but you're not going to win." And Exar Kun's like, "No, I've been doing this for a millennia. I'm going to get your students one by one to go to the dark side. We're going to destroy your body, and then I'm going to create the Sith Brotherhood all over again." Well, he starts these really strange attempts to destroy Luke's body. So the first one is he takes control of Steen, the older guy who is like really prone to hearing other people's voices. He controls him, and he makes him create like this like whirlpool, or like a tornado or something, like of wind. It's like this really powerful force storm, and his whole goal is to like pick Luke's body up, pop him through the top of the temple, and let him fall to his death. Like, that's what he decides to do. I've been saying Tepin. It's Terpfin the whole time, by the way. Terpfin. My apologies. There's so many characters in these books, y'all. I'm sorry. But the Jedi students stop Steen, and they save Luke, and all is well for a time. And then so Terpfin is finally fed up with himself being used as a sleeper agent. And when Carida was destroyed, he felt the control over his mind lax. So he's like, now I'm in control, and now I feel really bad, and I needed to go make things right. And so he goes to travel to Yavin while Luke's being attacked. He meets up with Leia, and he's like, he tells her what's going on. He confesses everything, and he apologizes. He's like, "I'm so sorry, but like, Ambassador Fergan knows where your kid is." And of course, Leia's like, "Oh no, we've got to like, I don't know how to get there. Like, no one told me how to get there, so I couldn't even go and save him if I wanted to." And so they go to get Akbar, who is, of course, it's still in hiding, or he's a military leader, at least on Mon Calamari or Mon Cala. And so they go to find him, because she's like, Akbar is the only person who knows how to find this planet, and Anakin's going to die if I don't find him. So her and Terpfin go. They meet with Akbar. There's this really awkward moment where Terpfin has to tell Akbar that he betrayed him. He's like, "Hey, you remember that time that you killed like a few hundred innocent people, and it was really devastating for you and caused a lot of trauma and pretty much made you quit as an admiral? I did that. I didn't want to, but I did it anyways." It's awkward. But they're like, they convince Akbar to leave, not to return to the New Republic yet, but to at least leave and go help try to save Anakin. I'm trying to see where this part happens, because it starts going back and forth at this point. There's like an attempt on Luke's life, and then this thing happens with Leia where she's trying to get Akbar to help, and then there's another attempt on Luke's life. And this is where that picture of Jason with the lightsaber comes into play. So shortly before this, you find out that Jaina and Jason can see Luke. They begin to be able to see Luke and hear him. I guess it's like the childlike wonder, like maybe they're Skywalkers and they're just that powerful. I don't know, but like no one else can see or hear Luke except for the twins. And so Exar Kun awakens these, like, they're like, think of a two-headed dragon with big bat wings and a scorpion tail. They're like Sith monstrosities that have been apparently dormant in one of these temples. And he's like, "Hey, you guys, go get Luke." So he sends these monsters after Luke. So the whirlwind thing didn't work. So he's like, "Okay, we're gonna send these monsters." And so he sends those, and Luke is able to meet Jason and Jaina in their room. And keep in mind, these twins are just short of 3 years old.
Nice.
Okay, so I probably should have said that earlier because like everyone that's aware that expanded universe is kind of aware that they're pretty young for most of the early stories, but they're for those of you who are curious, they're like just short of 3 years old, very young. And so Luke's like, wake up your sister. I need you to help defend me and wake up get everyone together. Like, you need to defend my body. Well, Jason gets there before all the other Jedi do. And the creatures start. So you've got these dragon things and a like almost 3-year-old. And all of a sudden, Jason's like, he's very brave. Mind you, he's very brave. He's like not phased. You know, these things are coming. And he's like trying to protect his uncle. And Luke's like, it's okay. I'll guide you through it. And then the other Jedi come into the room and Jason is like owning these things with Luke's lightsaber. Like, I'm not joking. Like, at one point the book is like, Kilgal comes in and she's like, sees him using the lightsaber with the speed and the strength of a Jedi master, like a swords master.
Dang.
And, like, think about a 2-year-old.
Miles.
And it says the lightsaber hilt is like almost as long as his forearm. Just like, I mean, like, I don't know how but this is the part to me that was like, yo, this is wild for Star Wars standards. But that's where that image from Jason from earlier comes in, of him wielding the lightsaber. Luke helps him through the Force fight at an expert level and they kill
That's
all of these
cool.
things. And you're like,
Fun.
what is freaking 2-year, like almost 3-year-old. So that happens. And then there's one final attempt at Luke's life, which we'll get to in a second. But during this all, it kind of switches back to Han, and Han finds Kip. They find Kip, and Kip has just detonated another star. So we're 3 for 3 at this point. And
How many torpedoes does this thing have?
it says in the book that he had like 2 or 3 at this point, like 2 or 3 left. So I think it was around 6.
Okay.
It's like 5 or 6 total, give or take. So he's there, and the whole reason why he destroyed this star was because there was a shipyard for the Imperials that they had hidden, and it destroyed the ships and everything. And it had like just exploded when they arrived, him and Lando. So they find Kip's ship. They try to initiate contact with him, and Kip starts to let Han through, and they start talking. Han's like, yo, dude, we skied together, bro. We freaking skied on Coruscant. I mean, it's way more heartfelt than
Let's
that.
use my nice skis.
Yeah. And so while that's happening, Lando's trying to break into the Sun Crusher because they linked that one time before. He's like, maybe I can remotely shut everything off. And so because he was charging the weapon, he was like, Han, if you get in my way, I'm gonna destroy the Falcon. Like, I'm gonna fire this point blank, and you're both gonna die. And Han starts to get through to him, and he was about to say something, and then the power shuts off. Like, Lando gets the power shut off, and it enrages him. And he's like, he turns it back on with the Force. He's like, fine, you want to play it this way? This time I'm not gonna hesitate. And then the chapter ends, and you're like, okay, is Han still alive at this? Like, did he get blown to smithereens or whatever? So then it goes back to the Jedi Temple, and this final time, this is the wild one. So Streen is sitting there. He's got Luke's lightsaber. He's sitting there. He's about to go to sleep by Luke's body, and Exar Kun tries to get into his mind again. He's like, "You're nothing. Like, you need my help. This isn't worth it. Basically, you need to kill Luke." And Streen wakes up and he's like, no, you're not going to get me this time. I'm not going to be taken advantage of again. Exar Kun's spirit kind of shows up in the middle of the room, and Streen like ignites the lightsaber, and he's like, I'm going to kill you with this, which I don't know how that was supposed to work, but he was like, you're not going to get me this time. And Exar Kun, you think he's about to have the upper hand. And then one by one, the Jedi students come in from different rooms off the main room, and they corner him. And I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of epic. It's a little cheesy, but it's kind of epic. But like, they basically come in one by one One of the other students is using Gantor's lightsaber, and they come in one by one and they surround him and they start like using the Force in tandem, and they start glowing blue and stuff, and like he starts to try to Exar Kun starts to try to attack their different weaknesses and stuff, but they're strengthening one another and like covering one another with the light side of the Force. And then at the very end, they get close enough, and then the two lightsabers, they strike at him at the same time and hold their blades there, and it essentially just like kills him and extinguishes him. I'm not doing the moment justice, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool moment. But they kill him, and the second that they do, Luke is able to come back to his body.
Fun.
Yep. So Luke's back. It's also at that moment when Exar Kun's spirit is vanquished that across the galaxy, Kip, who has fully charged this torpedo to launch at the Falcon point blank, breaks free from his being captive mentally by Exar Kun, realizes what he's done, and is mortified. And is like, he surrenders to Han, and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he surrenders and he powers everything down. So they take Kip back to the New Republic, and this whole time, Mon Mothma has been getting worse and worse and worse.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, they during this third book, they keep going back to it, but basically for a while, like, she wasn't attending public gatherings, and then her sickness got so bad, she was like, whatever, I don't care if people know. Like, she could barely stand by herself. Like, it was getting really, really bad. So Mon Mothma's there, and she's like, look, we're not a judicial council. You need to be judged by the Jedi Master. You need to be held accountable for your actions, because this is of the Force. Like, you've got the blood of billions of people on your hands, but we can't be the ones to judge you. So they send him back to face Luke on Yavin 4, which is so scary, I feel like. And so they take him back to Yavin 4. He has to face Luke, and Luke basically gives him another chance. And he's like, you're going to have to make things right, but do you want to continue your training? And he's like, yeah, I want to be a Jedi. And he's like, okay, to make things right, basically, you're going to have to be the one to destroy the Sun Crusher. This can't be ever used again. So you're going to have to be the one to destroy it. And we're going to take it to the mall, and we're going to throw it into a black hole. Keep in mind, this entire time, Wedge and Chewie have been freeing the Wookiee slaves and been trying to gather information from the Maul institution. And so they agree to go destroy the Sun Crusher. And they find out that Wedge and Chewie are there, and they haven't reported in. So they're like, we're going to go. Basically, they end up going there and going to help them in the mall. At this point, Han finally takes Lando to Kessel. In the process, the Death Star comes out of the mall. Again, we're having another right beside each other thing. Comes out of the mall, sees Kessel, starts to try to fire the laser on Kessel, destroys the garrison moon. Mara Jade and all of her forces get mobilized. This is the big final battle for Star Wars, by the way. They start trying to defeat this Death Star. And Han and Lando are like, hey, you remember that one time in Return of the Jedi that I flew it into the reactor? We're going to do that again. And so they literally try to do the same thing. They get in there and they get hit by like a crane or something on the way in because it's in construction. Right. And they're like, okay, we have to stop. I have to do repairs before we blow the reactor. So they latch onto the side like he did at the Star Destroyer in Empire.
Right.
Well, then the Death Star decides to go back in to like, why did they do it? They definitely weren't winning the fight. They weren't like in danger of losing, but they were like, we need to find a place to basically regroup. So they go back in. By the way, as they're coming out, they're like, hey, by the way, something just went into the mall, but we don't know what it is, but it was like Star Destroyer sized. So Han goes back in the Death Star. So many things happen. Han goes back in the Death Star. Wedge and them are still there. As they're about to leave, all of a sudden, Admiral Dala shows up in her Star Destroyer that's like burnt to a crisp. She starts firing on them. And then Luke shows up at Kessel after the battles happen. And he's like, we're here to throw it into a black hole. And she's like, well, fun fact, Han and Chewie, everyone's having a party in there. So basically, that's where everyone is. And he's like, okay, me and Kip need to go. This is how you can make things right. And we're going to go in. We're going to help them. So everyone ends up in the middle of this thing. And it all happens. It all happens at once. So the Star Destroyer hits first. And they start really like laying into the installation. The rebels had gotten the reactor stable before it blew up so they could get the information, but they're like sitting ducks basically. They have a full strike force, but they were kind of sitting ducks at that point. So they're trying to defend themselves. There's a big space battle happening. TIE fighters are going everywhere. Their lasers are pew-pewing everywhere. At one point they use 3PO to link these super old 5 attack shuttles together. And he helps pilot it with Chewie and starts attacking the Star Destroyer. And they start like really taking some good chunks out of the Star Destroyer. And Admiral Dalla is like, she's like, well, I've lost again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly over the installation and I'm going to fire all of the turbo lasers I have left at the reactor. I'm going to make it go super critical and it's going to blow everything up at once. So the rebels are running for their lives. Luke and Kip get there while this is all happening, and they're like, how can we help? And they bring the Sun Crusher in with him, and he's like, how can we help? And while him and Luke, Wedge and Luke are having a conversation about how they can help, Kip takes the Sun Crusher by himself. There's a lot happening. So we've got Dalla just trying to destroy the installation. Luke and Kip kind of come in the back door. Luke's trying to figure out what to do to help. Kip takes the Sun Crusher while this is happening because he's like, I have a duty to fulfill and I've got to destroy it. I've got to get, like, maybe I can go out there and help in the battle and then I can also destroy it while I'm out there, right? So he's doing the hero thing. I got to make things right. So Luke doesn't really do much for now. So the rebels are fighting the Star Destroyer. As they're fighting the Star Destroyer and Kip's going to try to help, the Death Star comes into the mall, the center of the cluster. So now the rebels have a Death Star. They have a Star Destroyer against them, and they're pretty outgunned. Luckily, the scientist and the administrator of the mall institution that's flying the Death Star is a complete idiot. He's an idiot the whole time. Dude's just not very smart. So they don't immediately use the weapon, but he's like, oh, we can use the weapon to destroy the mall installation now, and like prove that we can do something for ourselves to Admiral Dalla. And long story short, the installation gets destroyed. The rebels get out. The installation gets destroyed by Dalla, by her turbo laser blast. The whole thing goes up in a miniature like supernova explosion. You don't see the Star Destroyer after everything clears, but she survives. Fun fact: she lives to rally the Empire another day. She kind of did like this and like flew out really fast. And then Han and Mara Jade and Lando are inside the Falcon, and they try to plant detonators around the reactor core because they're like, the Falcon isn't fast enough to fly out right now in its current condition, so we need timed detonators so that we can get out and destroy this Death Star from the inside out. Well, they send space troopers in. All but one of the detonators get taken down. The one that does explode doesn't do enough damage to take the Death Star down. So that doesn't work. And then Kip flies in and fires one of his torpedoes in, but because of how densely like compacted the superstructure is, it doesn't make it all the way through the reactor. So that doesn't work. And this Death Star is just sitting there while he ends up flying in really close and antagonizing them. And because that idiot director was at the helm of the Death Star prototype, he tries to, like, because of his pride, he tries to destroy Kip. And Kip ends up leading them towards a black hole. And because of the mass of the Star Destroyer, how big it is, he gets it close enough that it gets sucked in. And then as the Sun Crusher is being sucked in, Kip jettisons out in a message tube that's just big enough for a human. Because like they put these message tubes in to like be there and just be like floating in space as like a calling card. So like when you destroyed the sun and everyone else died, they would come into the system and they'd be like, oh, it's a message tube. And it would be like, Drew
So-
was here.
Is it? Oh,
But it's big. It's a big message tube that's meant to hold data. And I guess Kip got in one and jettisoned out. So they get Kip.
I was picturing kind of like Rey in The Last Jedi.
It's very similar. Yeah. It's kind of similar to that. So installation's destroyed. The Death Star is destroyed. The Sun Crusher is in a black hole. I don't know if it actually got destroyed, but it's destroyed, I guess. And all is well at the end of everything. The whole time this is happening, it's worth noting that Fergan does attack the moon where Anakin is on, Anakin Solo. That does not go well. In fact, the baby's never really in any real danger because Akbar shows up with Leia and some forces, and they beat Fergan back, and Tepfin is the one that's able to kill Fergan using one of the walkers.
Fun.
And then Admiral, at the end of all of it, Anakin's safe. The remnant of the Empire and their super weapons are destroyed. Kip gets to train as a Jedi again. He had to face his fears and face his brother and stuff in a temple at one point, kind of like Luke did on Dagobah. But he's a good guy now. And to put the icing on the cake, Kilgal, who is a Jedi healer, is able to heal Mon Mothma. And we find out at the very end of the book, as she's dying, Turtfin was like, hey, by the way, the reason you're sick is because of Ambassador Fergan, that drink he threw in your face. It's a genetic virus attuned to your genetic structure that is meant to kill you from the inside out. And Kilgal is able to help heal her. In the original story, she dies, and then they changed it. They were like, nah, we can't have this much death, so they changed it for her to live. But she's so tired that she gives the chief of state role to Leia. So Leia's the new leader of the New Republic, but she gets to live. She's just tired. She's like, I'm out. Luke has some new students, including Kip, who is like supposedly going to be super powerful at some point. And the Empire is, for now at least, no more.
Cool.
And there you go. That's Champions of the Force. Everything came together in a nice little bow at the end.
Nice.
I feel like Luke barely did anything.
Yeah, he plays a pretty big role in like the background. It's interesting because like Han and Kip and all of them take much more of a prominent role, but like the significance of the small parts that Luke's in are also like it's pretty heavy. Yeah. And it also like sets up Luke as, you know, he has his Jedi Praxium now, and you see him do some really, really crazy cool things in the Force, and like he's a Spectre for a while, and like you see him he's able to come back from being a Force ghost, and like they defeat the spirit of an ancient Sith Lord. And so like there's a lot happening, but like it's kind of, I feel like in parts it's kind of overshadowed by the stuff that's happening with the remnant of the Empire. But I will say that like long term, this is a very important part, like I said earlier, of setting up the
Right.
story for what Luke does later.
Right.
And it's just another really good example of him developing as a character, becoming a teacher, all that stuff. So, yeah. But this is the next thing, and it's kind of difficult to move into anything else without, because like so much is heavily reliant on these characters now moving forward. It's like it would be weird if we jumped
Right.
and all of a sudden you're dealing with all these new people. So
then the next phase of the comics then? The continuation of Dark Empire, those comics, is that next, or what's next in the story chronologically?
So you can do, it's really hard because like iJedi is there. There are a few, there's a Darksaber book by Kevin J. Anderson that's kind of a sequel to this that people say is not really great, but that's kind of a continuation with Admiral Dala. But really, I might have to read the Black Fleet Crisis, but I might do a novel called The New Rebellion. I have that. So fun fact, I got that in a free book pickup at TJ.
Max?
Jones. library.
Oh, I was like,
Do you remember? Do you remember when they like every once in a while they would like put books out for free?
Yeah.
Well, Kaya picked it up for me one day. I had no idea what it was, but she picked it up for me because she's super thoughtful, and it's actually a pretty good book. So I might go through that.
They had Star Wars books at TJ.
Yeah, they did.
What?
There are 2 books: the duality of Thrawn, the Hand of Thrawn book, Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future, that have some Luke in it. But in terms of him specifically, there's like, I have to see. It kind of becomes a no man's land a little bit. There's like Young Jedi Knight books. There's like a series of the Young Jedi Knight books that happens, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of those. But really, I feel like the next thing would be the New Jedi Order. Because the New Jedi Order is the Yuzong Vong. There's like a lot of like side stories that happen, but this is the next series that's like really significant in stuff that happens with Luke. So I don't know.
So the question then is, since it's Yuzong Vong stuff, like when you did an EU with Andrew on the Yuzong Vong, like, is there gonna be too much overlap in that, or is like, how does that work?
So the one that I did for EU with Andrew, there will be a few. There will probably be a book or 2 that I'll be able to pull out between now and then, because there is a lot of time that happens between then. It's just like I'm really not trying to freaking, like, Luke and Mara Jade get married in that time, but I'm not really trying to read how many of these, 9 or 10 Young Jedi Academy books or Young Jedi Knight books. So,
right.
But in terms of the Yuzong Vong, that was more so focused on their story, their conquest, whereas the New Jedi Order books are more focused on the heroes facing the Vong, versus where mine was more centered on them as the villains. So, but the other thing about that is that there are a lot of them. There are
A lot of what?
Books in the New Jedi Order series.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know how many in total, but I know that there's like probably 10, maybe more.
Dang.
There's a whole series. So I would have to figure out how to adapt that into a single episode, but I'll figure it out. There's definitely more Luke, and I'll bring it to you. It'll probably be that book, The New Rebellion, that I mentioned, because I've got that and I want to reread it anyways. But there's a lot of Luke in that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't boring.
No, it was interesting. Is this, I don't know, like comparing these stories to the original trilogy, it's like these books are like bat crap crazy with like all this stuff. Like those original movies are just kind of like basic story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like this is like all crazy. Like you get like former Sith, whatever, and like all these crazy weapons, and it's just like
you get skiing on a mountain.
Skiing.
and they're turbo skis, by the way.
Oh, you didn't mention that turbo.
There's so much world building too that happens in these. Like you really get so much more context of what's going on, but it's impossible. Like there's no way to put it all in there. But it is interesting. It feels like with the EU, like you have the original trilogy. You know, Jedi comes out in the 80s. There's really not anything after that. And then they started writing books, and I feel like the authors were like, because in animation, it's the same thing with Clone Wars, it's the same thing with the comics. You're able to tell stories that aren't bound by the physical limitations of your actors and actresses on a movie set with the practical effects. You know, CG wasn't a thing then. They couldn't do the prequel era Jedi, flippies and stuff. So I feel like these books were like, how can we really go all in on these stories and make things crazy and like, so.
But it makes you realize, like, some of these stories, though, they're so crazy. Like, you understand why Disney was like, Nah. Like, let's just start.
Well,
Yeah.
the real reason why Disney was like, nah, was because they saw an opportunity to make more money, and they were like, we want our own story.
Well, yes.
Nah,
in there.
that's it's both. Like you can't. There's no way for them to use the EU to like make stories. Like
Sure. And I will say,
there's
like,
no way they could do it.
in defense of I guess Disney, it gets very confusing. They did a pretty good job of keeping the continuity straight, like generally speaking, but author to author there are variances and differences that you have to kind of just deal with because
Because there's technically tiers of canon, right? In the EU. Like they came out with like tiers, like, well, if there's a contradiction, this book has
yeah
like
priority
over this book or something like that.
Yeah, well, because that was the whole thing. It was like that's why I mentioned Jedi, because in this reader's companion, straight up, it was like, let me find it. Jedi and the Jedi Academy trilogy have chapters that occur simultaneously and tell the same story from different vantage points. It is this companion's recommendation that the Jedi Academy trilogy be read first, and then Jedi, since the later novel reveals the surprises of the former books. But I read on the internet that this was an attempt to kind of correct some of the continuity things, that because like they were also working on other stories at the time, and they were like, this might not work with everything that we're planning. So I think Jedi was an attempt to like correct some of that stuff. So it was messy. Yeah, it was messy, but I still like it a lot more than the stories we got in the Skywalker saga in canon. So
Cool.
Yeah. So there you go. Jedi Academy trilogy.
All right. Cool. Well, let's transition over to everyone's favorite time of every episode, voicemail time.
It's voicemail time.
All right. So we have 3 voicemails tonight.
There you go.
First up, our good and faithful pod racer is back. He's been on a crazy journey since the last time what was the last thing you remember from our pod racer friend, Garrett?
I don't remember.
Oh. Well, so he was on the run from Jabba. He got captured by the Hutts. Then he was able to.
I think it was when he was reading his ransom note.
There was a couple ransom note ones. Yep.
There were a couple ones.
I think you got the second one.
Maybe.
And then last week, something like he's trying to escape, and like all these people in Jabba's palace got killed, but they were also like people that had bounties on them, and then like he was like, hey, I can just turn these bounties in when I'm escaping or something. So that's kind of where we pick up. So let's take a listen to Garrett.
Hey, Empire Radio. It's Garrett. Turns out a couple of the bounties that I got had a pretty large amount of credits on top of them. So I think I'm going to go on vacation for a bit, especially after the months that I've had. I think I'm going to go to Castillo, take the N1 for a spin over there. I heard they're starting a new racing league. But I was wondering, if you guys could vacation anywhere in Star Wars, where would it be? Also, Happy News Cycle.
Happy News Cycle to you, Garrett.
Happy News Cycle.
So the question, which is a little bit nuanced than a similar question that we've got, because we've always gotten the question, where would we want to live?
Mm-hmm.
But this is, once we've established where we want to live, where would we want to go on a vacation?
Mm.
So
I gotta remember where I wanted to live.
probably Tatooine.
It's probably. I think it was actually Naboo.
I think I said Naboo or something like maybe Coruscant.
Very temperate, yeah.
That'll be a cool vacation spot. I don't know, Kashyyyk could be cool. I feel like there could be some cool tourism, like
bro, it'd be humid as heck, and the bugs are huge. It's like going to freaking Florida, but on a planet-wide scale and worse.
I feel like Kashyyyk would be a lot better than Florida. Florida's kind of rough. I have
That's
no
true.
desire-
I
have
actually would take
no
Kashyyyk
desire-
for Florida, but still, I feel like Kashyyyk would just be so humid. But maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. Cal Kestis didn't really have much issue when he was on Kashyyyk with the humidity, so
That's a video game. Cal Kestis doesn't have pores.
he's a human being. Yes, he does.
No.
I would probably go with Kashyyyk or Hoth. I think it'd be cool as hang out.
Hoth?
I
Dude,
like
you
cold.
freaking live in Hoth.
No,
Not right now. Not this year.
It was 55 and raining on Christmas Day.
Wow.
Did you hear about that, Andrew?
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Dude,
like
it's been the worst.
We kind of have a little snow.
We
right now.
just got snow the other day,
On
like less than an
Christmas Eve.
inch.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
like
just a
less
mess.
than an inch. It's
Because
like
it was less than
dang.
an inch, no one shoveled, so then it all turned to ice. So then the sidewalk should
Oof.
straight ice.
That's
It's just
dangerous.
stupid because people are lazy.
oh yeah, and it's like it was like 34 yesterday, so then it all melted and now it's all icy.
Oof.
I think it's supposed to get cold this weekend, Jeremiah. I heard
We'll see.
18.
Nice.
I hope we get really like negative cold while I'm in Hawaii
Why do you care?
because I'm
That's not a thing.
or you guys
Whatever.
get your first big hit. But yeah, we haven't got any snow this year.
Well, I would probably go with Naboo
That's where I'm living. So I can't-
or Ithor, as described in those books, seemed really beautiful too. Wedge says it was a place that a lot of young couples go on vacation. So I was like, sounds like a good time.
What happened with Kui? Like, what was?
Oh yeah, she was on a journey to get her memory back, and she got parts of it back, and basically they decided to stay together. It was kind of a weird, like, we all lived happily ever after thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I didn't mention it. Like, but anyways, I would say Naboo. I feel like would be cool because I feel like they'd have really good museums. Naboo obviously is Italy.
Right.
Parts of Italy, and I feel like that would be they would
hiking.
Yeah, they've got really beautiful
Hiking.
plains. They've got lakes. They've got
Cow
feel like they've-
tipping if you want to.
I feel like they'd have really good coffee culture there.
True, but we're not gonna
So-
do another ad. But yeah,
Right. But I would say Naboo or Ithor, but probably Naboo, seeing as like it's more temperate because like I get hot really easily, and I just definitely not
well, that's why
most too
I'm
far.
living in Naboo.
Yeah.
So I'd want to probably go travel to.
Or that one beach planet that Andor goes to.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Like-
That seemed pretty nice.
80s beach.
Oh yeah.
yes, that'd be cool.
Drew would just go to Tatooine.
I'm trying not to pick Tatooine, but the cantina would be fun to people watching. for sure.
Literally full of criminals.
Go to Canto Bight and just hang out there with all the rich people.
No one has the money to go to Canto Bight.
Some brooms.
Oh yeah, you can hang out with your favorite character.
Yeah. I had one. I would want to go to. I think it would be really cool to go to the planet that before they blew it up in Rogue One.
Alderaan.
No, not Alderaan.
Oh, Jeddah.
Jeddah. The city of Jeddah seemed really cool. A lot of history.
I could see it.
Fun. All right. Cool. Well, thank you, Garrett, for that.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Hope you have a good vacation.
Yeah.
Get to lay low for a while.
Yeah, definitely.
But you can still send in voicemails from vacation.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, next up, we have two from someone we haven't heard for maybe a couple months, Addie. So let's take a
Oh.
listen to two voicemails from Addie. So number one,
Nice.
let's take a listen.
Hey, Empire Radio. It's Addie. Well, I'm back. At least I think I am. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm so sorry. It's been so long since I sent in a voicemail. School, taekwondo, the whole shebang of life has been kicking my butt. Seriously. And I've got nothing done. I haven't sent in a voicemail. I haven't released a podcast episode. It is really crazy, but hopefully, now that I got some things under control, I will be sending in regular voicemails. But we'll see how that works out. I just wanted to send a voice message saying hi and I'm back. I hope you guys have a great day and may the force be with you. Bye.
All right, cool. Thanks for giving us
Welcome
an update.
back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Doing that taekwondo stuff and doing school and stuff, so it's pretty a lot to get done, but sounds like you're getting all caught up, so that's good to hear. But we do have a question from Addie, so let's listen to her second voicemail.
Hey, Empire Radio. It's Addie again. You know, I can't return without a question, so I do have a question today. And it is, are you guys excited for the Bad Batch Season 3 coming out in the next few months? I certainly am, because I'm me, and I need to know what happens after the whole finale between poor Tech, rest his soul, and sweet Omega, also bless her soul. But yeah, there's just so many questions that need to be answered, like, how is Emery Omega's sister? Is Tech really dead?
No.
And like, is Omega gonna be the only one
No.
standing after this season? Who else is gonna die? Do I have to watch anyone else die? I hope not. But anyway, let me know what you think and have a great day. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Bad Batch. I'm excited for it.
bro.
If it comes out,
I forgot.
couple
I
months.
forgot it was even on the horizon with the strike and everything.
So a couple weeks ago, they officially gave their 2024 like what's going to come out. It's going to be Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, Bad Batch Season 3, and Tales of the Jedi Season 2. So
That's good.
you know, at some point now, Eddie mentioned it in the next couple or few months. I haven't heard that. I don't know. I think it's going to be Skeleton Crew, then Acolyte, then Bad Batch.
Wait,
then,
you think Bad Batch is going to be after all of those? Because I thought Acolyte was supposed to be like way later in the year.
No, Acolyte was supposed to be this spring.
Ah.
So that was, but because of the race strike and stuff, Skeleton Crew is going to be first. So then I think it's going to be Skeleton Crew soon, like March maybe, I'm guessing. And then we'll get Acolyte, and then we'll get Bad Batch towards the end of the summer or in the fall. And then I think maybe overlapping with Bad Batch, we'll get Jedi, Tales of the Jedi.
I really hope that Skeleton Crew is like an Andor for me, because like I'm not excited for Skeleton Crew at all. I'm like way more excited for
We
the
don't
other
really
shows.
know anything about it.
Yeah, like based on what I've heard about it. I'm like, yeah, it's Jude Law and they're doing stuff with. Yeah, it's like there's nothing about it that's exciting for me. Like I'm way more excited for Acolyte, but
oh yeah,
you know, like give me some dark side stuff in live action that's not Palpatine again, you know. So like I'm super excited about that, but maybe because like I wasn't excited about Andor. I really wasn't when I was, because I was
crazy.
I was on record. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was on record at one point being like, I'm not really excited for Andor. Obi-Wan, you know, Kenobi's my thing. Like I'm really excited for Kenobi, and then that turned out differently. So you know, hopefully.
But her question is about Bad Batch. We could go.
Oh yeah. Right.
Oh yeah. So Tech is definitely not dead.
No way.
Definitely not.
Not even close.
We didn't see a body.
We didn't see a body.
They fall to their death? No one falls to their death. It's Star Wars.
And so he's definitely taken captive, and he's being experimented on, all that jazz. That's said. And then
I don't know though. I feel like maybe he's kind of off on his own, trying to get back to the others.
No, because they got his glasses.
Yeah, they got his body.
So I think they tracked him.
You think so?
Like, oh yeah.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't have his glasses, so he can't see anything.
I guess so.
But I do think all of the Bad Batch members are going to die to save
Omega.
Omega.
Yeah.
I think that's how it has to happen. Because if
Yep.
they end and they're all alive or some of them are alive, then it's like, well, now they're going to continue the story in comics or in a book or something. I'm like, I don't want
Yeah.
it. I want it a nice ending. So it's not, oh, nice ending isn't
A nice ending, he says. Yeah.
when they're all dead. But I think I'm excited to see like Omega's story like continued like after the show somehow. Like her character is very compelling. But yeah, but who knows when we're gonna get that? It's gonna be a while. So
yeah. I feel like we have to have some pretty heavy closure. I feel like the story needs it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's not 12 episodes again. I'm hoping they focus it at like 8 to 10 episodes and they just focus on the good ones. Because season 2, it was really high highs or it was kind of really low lows.
Yeah.
And so like if they can just focus on
season 1 was really good.
If they can just focus on doing all the really good episodes, like I'm fine with like just 8 or something.
What if we had like 8 45 to 50-minute episodes?
Man, that'd be so great. But
like if they knew like we're going out, this is the last season for sure. We're not, we're not continuing the stories at all. Like we're going to give the fans what they want. Like think about that.
I think they should. But it's just like it's also an animated show that is for kids. And so they're going to stick at that 30-minute mark that they do for animated shows now. So
wow.
But didn't we get some Bad Batch episodes that were longer though?
We did. Like season 1, that first episode was 75 minutes long.
Yeah. It could happen.
But that was just an opening thing. So, but I'm excited. I know Addie's excited because it's her favorite Star Wars thing.
I'm excited. I just, like Jeremiah said, I don't want low lows. Just keep it high the whole time.
You don't want it low.
And if somehow Tech dies, I'm gonna be mad, and primarily because he'd be the first one to fall to his death ever in Star Wars, and that just ruins like everything I stand on in life. So
on life,
well, think about how many people died or didn't die after Qui-Gon got stabbed.
He got stabbed through the spine. That's different.
Dude,
straight through the spine. It's not like
they could
went through her side and the next day.
Obi-Wan was there. He could have force healed him. Qui-Gon could have been
about it.
No, he could. Qui-Gon could have.
If
survived.
only Obi-Wan would have kissed Qui-Gon in that moment, he would have been. Wait, what?
Then Obi-Wan would have died.
And
I think that the force healing was a forgotten thing in the Jedi Order by that time.
Add that to the list of reasons why the Jedi Order failed.
That's why when Rey read through the ancient Jedi text, she rediscovered that as a thing.
Oh, that's a cool theory.
It's not a theory. It literally is shown in the movie. That's what happened.
Like literally, if they had just gotten Qui-Gon to a back to tank quick enough, I feel like he would have.
Maul was on his butt, so.
I don't know. It was right through his spinal cord. It was enough to like hit some vital organs in the spinal cord.
So here's my question. How did Maul survive being cut in half?
Because he says he uses the dark side. He says that specifically. So if Qui-Gon wanted to use the dark side and use the hate to like push him forward.
I have a question. How does Maul go to the bathroom?
He doesn't.
How does
he has a bag.
He has some sort of a filtration system.
Just
look, they figured it out.
I don't know. I'll text Dave Filoni and see what he has to say.
He has like a tube that goes down his like metal legs, and
he's like, finally, someone has asked me this question. I've had it in my back pocket for years.
He's like, now that I'm chief creative officer, we're telling this story.
He edits all the Clone Wars with Maul in, and there's this little tiny bag flopping around in the background.
Tales of the Jedi is just how Maul uses the restroom.
Dude, who do we want in Tales of the Jedi? I know we've asked this before, but if they do 3 episodes and 3 episodes,
Windu would be fun.
I feel like they could be doing Windu because of the book.
Yeah,
but maybe because they're doing the book, they won't do it. So
maybe
Windu would be cool.
Windu would be cool. I would really like to see
I want
Quinlan Voss.
Quinlan Voss would be cool. I kind of want maybe some High Republic ones would be cool.
Oh yeah, that's too.
Like Stellan.
It'd be cool, but it's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
like-
I was gonna say that would be kind of bold for them to do that.
It'd be sweet. I'd be down.
It would be sweet. Like I would love that, but like
You know who would be really cool? The guy who created the clones.
Sifo Dyas.
Sifo
Sifo
Dyas.
Dyas.
I liked his character in Dooku Jedi Lost.
yeah, me too.
I thought he was really interesting.
Yeah.
So to have a story behind that would be really sweet. Like to actually get his story.
See, it could be really cool to see some of Luke too.
Ooh.
That'd be
And I will
interesting.
say,
they could do it during the original trilogy time, like of him training.
So here's the thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but the canon Star Wars comic has explored a ton of what he does between
I've heard.
the two movies, and it's really cool. There's a part of me that like wants to. It's not an EU with Andrew, but like wants
Would
to
it be
cover
like
that,
Canon with Andrew.
like because there's some really crazy lightsaber lore stuff going on right now.
Oh yeah, with the crystals.
Yeah, that I think would be really, really interesting. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. I'll throw a curveball at y'all sometime, but
we'll see. We'll
Canon
talk
with
about it.
Andrew.
Or just
comic.
Canon with Empire Radio, because that's
That's
what we
us.
normally do.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, Addie. Good to hear from you.
Yes.
You said you're gonna start sending on a regular basis now, so we're gonna hold you to that.
So see
Also-
you next week. What?
We haven't seen you in the Discord in a while. You joined a while ago, and you were quite active, and we haven't heard from you. So
Well, obviously
and
she's
pop-
been busy.
taking butt
yeah, but
and taking
pop your head in
names,
once in a
man.
while. Just say, "Hey, what's up?" Blah blah blah. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, what's up? Blah blah blah. Just copy and paste that in every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just put that every 3 weeks. That's about
Yeah.
all I do too.
Yeah. You do less than that.
Dang.
When was the last time you posted anything in the Discord? It's been it's been a long time, dude.
Dang.
Well,
You're like
it's on you. I'm going right now.
84th rank right now.
Blah, blah,
Andrew's
blah.
still
Hey.
12 or 13.
Hey.
I'm 3.
Oh wow.
Weird flex. Okay.
There's a lot of people in that top 15 that haven't been there for a while, and it's like that's how much they were on it that they're still
Yeah.
top
You
10.
delete
The
them.
fact that I'm 12, that's
I
pretty
think you're
impressive.
12 or 13. I looked the other day.
That's impressive.
But anyway, this has been a long episode, so let's go over some social media and we can get out of here. So, if you made it this far and you want to get connected to Empire Radio, what?
If you've made it this far.
Hey,
he
most
says.
people would fall off about halfway through. So if you've made it this far,
Jeez.
like I'm proud of you. But yes, if you want to get connected, go on the description, click the links.co/Empire Radio link spelled with 2 I's. Landing page for everything: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, fan email. If you want to leave a voicemail, if you want to join the Discord, invites there, and also we have the link to needlesslynerdy.com, which is an entertainment network that we're a part of. So go check that out for all kinds of nerdy content. A lot of fun stuff over there. And I think that is everything. Anything else, boys?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
All right,
Nope.
cool. Well, you've been listening to another EU-tastic episode of Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah,
I'm Andrew.
I'm Drew.
and may the Force be with you.
Always.